First opponent is INER.
I didn't really remember when I first knew about Ukraine.
We met already in the qualifier for this event. I managed to beat him 3-2.
And that's it. The game is over. Crane has booked his spot at Spring Championships. The culmination of 3 months' work, the culmination of a ton of work from Crane individually.
That was kind of unfortunate for me. I knew that he's really good.
I assume it'll be a tough match, but at the same time, he brought pretty much what I would expect from him. I expect him to be piloting his freeze mage really, really well.
I'm sure he knows my weak points and his strong points.
Like, you cannot play freeze mage, rogue, or especially old patron, but even new school patron. You can't play it at the top level without being an insanely good player. It's just not possible. You have to think correctly about the game. As a player, I also have an edge, which is something that I'll say every time. It doesn't matter who I'll face, because I know what it takes to consistently gain those high-rank finishes.
I think we will play and decide who is the best.
I mean, we played before. Good luck again, but I hope the outcome will be the same. I'm Crane. For those of you who don't know me, you're about to.
Welcome back. I'm joined on the desk once again by Savitz as we prepare for our 4th and final match of the day. It's going to be Crane taking on INER. We talked a lot earlier today about how these players are kind of coming at different points in their competitive careers. Crane, very well established, member of Complexity Gaming, largely thought of as one of the best technical players in all of Europe. INER comes in as the Russian representative, brought kind of a more standard lineup and just looking to prove that he basically can just outplay Crane, which is going to be a tall task.
Sure, but he's going to take the challenge, and he's playing some of the tougher decks, including the Freeze Mage and the Rogue. So those are a little bit tougher to play. And Crane, he's probably the favorite coming into this match. A lot of pro players who are not in the tournament have predicted him alongside with Thais to be the favorites to take it all.
Yeah, we see both players rocking the Freeze Mage here, and kind of interesting, Crane including the one mirror image, but we're going to hop right into game 1 here, and it's going to be Crane on the Freeze Mage versus INER on the Aggro Shaman. And INER Shaman is, make no mistake, it's not that slower version, it's not mid-range, there are no Thunder Bluff Valiants here, there's an Earth Shock, but that's just to get by so he can hit base.
Yeah, that's an extremely fast list that he's running. His list includes 2 Abusive Sergeants and 2 Argent Squires, all of those 1-drops. Also, actually, there are some interesting inclusions in that deck. There is 1 Elemental Destruction, which is very interesting, and we don't see that all that often.
Yeah, a lot of times with Elemental Destruction. So when Elemental Destruction was first released, we saw Kalento kind of messing with it a lot and seeing like where it belonged in Aggro Shaman. And there are times where, you know, late in the game you've kind of abandoned like winning from the board. You're going to win with Doomhammer, you're going to win from chaining spells, but you need to get by some of these nuisance taunts. And again, Elemental Destruction is not in here to help you win the board control game as the Aggro Shaman player. It is here to help you get by those big threats, and once you use it, you load up your board again, and then hopefully do something like Lava Shock to unlock those Meta Crystals. But if you can't, it's still a good tempo swing in your favor.
Yeah, and also the Doomhammers, as much as they can deal damage, it takes a lot of time to get all that potential used, and 4 turns, sure, the Elemental Destruction might buy you more time to get all that in.
Very true, and we see INER opening up here. He's got that Tunnel Trog, which is exactly what you want to see. The problem is that his turn 2 follow-up, as we see it, is Ancestral Knowledge, and that will activate the Tunnel Trog, but I don't think you can play it.
No, you can't really play it. You want to keep up the pressure, and so that Ancestral Knowledge is not really an option in my opinion, because it's so important to play either the Feral Spirits or the Horse Rider on turn 3, or the Ferals.
Right, so taking a look at this matchup, Crane on Freeze Mage. Now, Aggro Shaman can have a pretty good matchup against this if it goes really fast. That's why you want to play that Aggro Shaman more than you'd want to play necessarily the mid-range version of this deck. So this lines up pretty well for INER. Curious to see how those cards like Elemental Destruction and Earth Shock will potentially affect the matchup.
Yeah, the Freeze Mage really suffers from the Healbot rotation out of the standard format. That used to be one of the cards that bought you that little bit of extra time to survive, to kind of outlast the limited amount of damage coming in from the Shaman player.
Yeah, it's another deck that's similar to Zoo. Still exists in the meta, still seen as one of the powerful staple decks in competitive play, but the overall power level with things like Anti-Killbot, Mad Scientist gone, is a little bit lower across the board, so not necessarily in the space it was prior to the introduction of Standard.
Yep, and here INER, only with those 2 options, he can either Totem Pass, the better option I suppose, with well actually he doesn't run anything from the revolve, so that totem did end up being kind of meaningless, but might as well throw it in there. It doesn't really matter.
You know, sometimes you just want a totem, and he got a totem briefly.
Why not?
Yeah. Crane can just play down that Novice Engineer, start drawing. Novice Engineer, I feel like I'm not much of a Freeze Mage player, you know, Savitz, maybe you know better, but I feel like Novice Engineer isn't a usual inclusion in Freeze Mage these days, or has that changed?
It's not that common. Like not everybody runs it, but it is an additional way to kind of like cycle through the deck faster. The strangest card in this Freeze Mage list is definitely the one copy of Mirror Image that Crane is running. That's something I almost never seen before.
Yeah, when we were first reviewing the deck list, I got very excited because I saw the Mirror Image. I'm like, oh, cool, it's Tempo Mage. And then I looked through the rest of this list, and I'm like, this is not Tempo Mage.
Not Tempo Mage, not even close.
Sadly, there's a 0 Tempo Mages in this tournament.
Yeah, so coming back to the Novice Engineer, he is running 2 of those and only 1 Acolyte of Pain. So I guess he wants to, with those double torches, he wants to be more like mana efficient. 2 Ice Barriers, 2 Ice Blocks, 2 Arcane Intellects. There's so many things to do at 3 mana. Acolyte might be a little bit too slow for that, and he has opted to go for that fast card draw instead of the little bit slower one.
Yeah, when I have seen Novice Engineer, I feel like it's usually in the place of Loot Hoarder, but we do see that, you know, Crane is running 2 Loot Hoarders, so a lot of cycle in this deck, unsurprising given what you're trying to do. And, you know, for INER, it's one of those things where you don't necessarily need to pay attention to the board too much. You're not going to get punished if you don't kill this Novice Engineer, so yeah, just going to expect to have him leave that alone and just keep going face here.
There's absolutely no reason to go for that Novice Engineer here. There's no buffs coming in from the Freeze Mage. There's literally no way to get punished.
Yep. So Crane. Now, when you play this, when you play the Freeze Mage deck, it's not one of those decks where you know you can sit there and just kind of be like, oh, I'm just gonna take my turns really quickly. There's always so many options, and it's why it's such a high skill ceiling, kind of skill testing deck that a lot of the best players in the world feel very proud of their ability. Like Laughing is a name that kind of comes to mind as someone who feels like, you know, he's mastered this. And a lot of the Freeze Mage players who are near on that level are very proud of their ability because it requires so much thought to actually find the most correct play.
Absolutely. Every time your hand is a little bit different from the previous time you played the deck, so you gotta take into consideration what am I going to do in the next turn? How are my future turns going to go? And you also have to remember, like, what deck list is your opponent playing, and what is the board state? There's so many variables, and it's something that takes a lot of practice to master.
Yeah, INER claims that he is also one of the Freeze Mage players in the world. He told us the other day, really, that you're either a Freeze Mage player or you're not. There is no such thing as a master Freeze Mage player. And as someone who's not a Freeze Mage player, I completely agree, because every single time I look at the board as a Freeze Mage player, I'm thinking, I'm not always sure what to do when you have so many options.
I kind of used to be a Freeze Mage player myself, but I haven't played it all that much recently. It's kind of something that I maybe a little bit like drifted out because it's maybe a little bit older strategy because I'm having so much fun with the newer cards.
I was going to say, if it doesn't have Reno or Cthulhu or Yogg in it, I wouldn't expect it to.
Yeah, you know it. I love the Yogg list so much.
Yeah, you got to type there. But on the board, Crane just has those 1/1 still. Can use them to possibly harass things out for now. But Doomsayer Frost Nova coming out. Clear way to get rid of the board as he sees it. Of course, know that INER is running that Earthshock, and I wouldn't be surprised if it comes out here.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing here. He's running 1 copy of Earthshock, and this is the perfect moment for it. There's no follow-up AoE, there's no Blizzard in Crane's hand. Oh, actually there is a Frost Nova, so he could like stall for another turn, but there's no board clear for these minions after this. It is the second Doomsayer. I would be shocked if he chose to not Earthshock here for some reason. I mean, has to happen, right?
Yeah, and that Wolf is actually keeping those pesky Novice Engineers at bay, which could be used to poke down the Argent Horse Rider. So the Wolf standing tall there, and yeah, that Earthshock's going to make sure that that Doomsayer does not go off.
I absolutely love this play by using the Lava Shock here to get that 2 damage in. Actually, like, unlocking the mana crystals wasn't all that meaningful, but with 7 mana, Doomhammer and double rock by the weapon, having his opponent down to 16 gives him a lethal potential, even if there is a second Nova.
Does that maybe telegraph something you would think to Crane?
It might. It absolutely might. Like, this, Crane might be thinking right now, like, what happened? Like, was it really worth the Lava Shock just to get an extra hero power totem? It definitely is a weird play.
Right, so if Crane picks up on the fact that this might be what happens, he has to take very specific courses of action here. He's going to need to either Ice Lance INER's face, or he's going to need to look at using that Ice Block to stop the damage from coming in. But yeah, I don't think this is actually very, very obvious what's necessarily on deck here.
No, it's not obvious at all. And we know that unless the ice block or ice lance gets played,
Alright, there's the ice block.
yeah, so this game is not gonna be over just yet.
Now he can pop the block.
Can he now do it with just one rock biter?
Let's
That'll
see,
be.
with 10. No, I don't think he can do it with 1.
He can't, not even with the abusive, it will be only 15
Oh, yep,
damage.
yep.
So he does have to use the Doomhammer and both rock biters, so I'm sure we're gonna see it here. I mean, if you have an opportunity to take out the ice blocks this early.
Yeah, and then you still have the
gotta take
Doomhammer
it.
equipped, and this
right.
is why Shaman has that good matchup against Freeze Mage. Doomhammer changes the dynamic of the game very much, though.
Yep, good attack there, trying to get his opponent as low as possible.
So let's see what happens here.
So this is the way to do it. No, this is so smart. You know, really like really going carefully with that, because it actually, if it just went for the rock biter and went with the weapon to face twice, he would have popped his opponent at 8. And I mean, when the stakes are this high and the players are this good, it's something that is unlikely to happen. Mistakes like that don't happen very often, but if you're just playing a casual game on the ladder, you might see it quite often. It's not that obvious.
I mean, INER bragged the entire time we were out to dinner that he thought even though his lineup wasn't particularly like innovative, he just feels he can outplay people.
Yep.
That he's a very tight technical player, and so far we've seen the story today has been the success of a lot of those players. We've seen Tice as well as Casey, who are both very well-known technical level players.
Yeah, and he certainly played this one well. There's that lava shock. He already had the lava burst though, so it's a quick game 1 going to INER.
Yeah, so INER goes up 1-0 on Crane. I would say if INER wins this, it's not necessarily the upset I think people expect it to be.
No.
Crane is certainly more well-known, but he kind of comes from similar origins as someone who's just a very good player who wasn't super well-known.
Yeah, I watched INER play as well in the preliminaries, and it was very solid, I have to say, from what I remember from it. He was playing great. It wouldn't be like, oh my god, like how did this guy manage to beat somebody like Crane? He's also a great player, but Crane's maybe a little bit more accomplished, even though he's lacking that big win under his belt.
Right, and that's part of the reason you want to win a tournament like this, so that, when your name comes up in conversation, you're like, oh yeah, he won the Europe Spring Championship. He's absolutely one of the best players, because when you're in a spot like INER's, it's one of those things where people may look down on you because you don't necessarily have the tournament wins that Crane does, the performance that, people have come to expect of Crane. Speaking of which, we did have the opportunity to sit down and get to know Crane a little bit better, so now we're going to share that with you.
Because you're always battling against your own shadow, at least I do. Like I want to stack up to what I know I can. I'm Crane. I'll be representing Denmark at the European Championship. I started playing December of 2013. Initially I was just thinking I would play it casually, and then next thing you know I'm trying to qualify for BlizzCon, and that's when I really felt like I should play some tournaments and see how I stack up.
Crane is an incredibly skilled player, but he hasn't had that breakout performance that really shoves him into the spotlight.
I always put a lot of pressure on myself, how to perform, how to practice, and whenever I make a mistake, I get really sad about that. I want to do better for the next time. A lot of that would just sort of naturally go away once I get the big win.
If you're playing a game like Hearthstone for 2.5 years plus, you can't be this good and not have a breakout title performance yet.
Now that I've tried so hard to get to where I am now, and 1 big win or 2 big wins or whatever would push me in that end of the top quality players that people are looking at, I've just really been sort of close to the level that you need and knocking at the door of the pro scene, just waiting for that 1 big break. And I'm here to get one. I don't just want to be decent or something. I want to be as good as I can be. To get your people's eyes on you, you need to win something, or at least get really far in a really big tournament. I mean, the way that I've always looked at this is that I started out with a lot of opponents, now I have 7 left. But I need to get rid of all of them. And the first one is not more important than the second one.
Bold words from Crane, a man on a mission here to prove that he is absolutely deserving of the hype, and he wants to have that big championship win behind him. So going down 0-1 is certainly not part of that plan. He's going to have to look to kind of right the ship here.
No, but it's a best of 7 series once again for this summer. Spring split championship. So there's a long way to go, and Crane might be down, but he's not out. And here he goes against the Zoo Warlock from INER.
Yeah, INER is going to go ahead and keep that Zoo Warlock, and this is a matchup where traditionally the Freeze Mage really shines. The ability to control the board using the spells like Frost Nova, using Blizzard, the ability to lock down the board, and eventually just chain together the damage to win. This should be a good matchup for Crane. We even see Mirror Image should be very solid in terms of what Zoo likes to do and just blocking out some damage.
Yeah, I mean, it can be very good if you time it well, but it can also be nothing but heal for 4. It's a little bit situational. Also, if you keep it in the starting, and then you have less chances to pick up the all-important Doomsayer and maybe the AoE cards. I don't honestly know how to navigate with the Mirror Image, because it's not a card that I've used in my mage list, but Crane is going to keep it here, and let's see how it works out.
I mean, traditionally when you're using it, even in Tempo Mage, it's one of those things where, yeah, if you have to, you can heal 4. Like, sometimes you have to use it to stay alive. But you usually want to try to protect a priority target. You mentioned Doomsayer. Maybe Emperor Thorsan would be another target that you look to protect. Maybe that's a little bit... I mean, Emperor Thorsan, when he comes out, you're usually just expecting that one turn. Like, that's what you're looking for, and a lot of your plan is based on. But INER has a pretty strong starting curve here. We see that Flame Imp can follow up with the Flame Juggler, go right into that Imp Gang Boss, and Crane's hand has the Frost Nova, no Doomsayer, so he'll need to dig around in his deck to find more of those answers.
Yeah, if he chooses to not play the Mirror Image here, I think the only reason has to be that he wants to pull off something like turn 3 Doomsayer Mirror Image and try to like play an earlier Doomsayer. Oh, interesting strategy here. Going for the Coin Fire Blast. He doesn't have a turn 2, so he knows that he should be able to ping it against again next. There is no real other play. That might be quite good, actually.
Yeah, I don't dislike that play, mostly for the reason you brought up. He didn't really have a turn 2 play, so there's no reason not to do that. And it will eventually deal with the Flame Imp. We do see that Flame Imp go down. One point I want to touch on when it comes to INER's Zoo deck is he is running that variant that has the Leroy and 1 Sea Giant, so the burst potential is there if he can get damage out early to ignore things like Frost Nova and just play down the Leroy and win the game.
Oh yeah, but it takes a lot of work to get the mage that low enough for that, and you also have to draw the power overwhelmings and all that to have enough reach.
Yep.
The Leroy Chenking is something that we used to see all the time, like a month ago or a couple of weeks ago even. But now we are seeing some Doom card lists as well, and Crane in his Zoo Warlock is actually choosing to go for the Doom cards instead. Which one do you like it better?
So when I've been playing... Fun fact, I've mentioned this on Twitter before, I don't like playing Warlock just from like a thematic standpoint. I more enjoy like Hunter and Paladin. They feel like, work with me here, but they feel like the good guy classes.
All right.
Gul'dan, not so much, but I was like, you know what, I'm just going to play a bunch of Turna's Zoo deck, and I ended up messing around with Zoo. I played about 60 games over the course of the last like 2 days, and I like the Doomguard version better, I think.
Me too.
Yeah.
I don't really have like an excellent explanation for it, but it just feels like it's a little bit better card to play in situations where you're not using it to just kill off your opponent. But it's certainly, like, the Leroy works much better with cards like Power Overwhelming.
Yep, it does. The Doomsayer, or sorry, the Doomguard rather, it's one of those things where, you know, when you get that Doomguard and you have 0 cards in hand and you just draw the Doomguard off the top, it feels so valuable. You're like, yes, this feels great. But the pro community in general is pretty divided. Yep. I think, you know, and way back in the day, like 2014, every aggro Warlock deck / Zoo Warlock deck was running Leroy, so he kind of bounces in and out based on the meta.
Yep. The ice lands on that Darkshire Councilman. He doesn't feel great, but he knows that if he left that up, it would be a lot more damage coming in from it. INER looking at Sea Giant right now, and you can't really not play it here. It's such a big threat.
Well, I was going to say, you have an interesting choice here, because if you play down the Dark Iron Dwarf, you can get rid of the Acolyte of Pain and make sure it only draws 1 card. I agree. The Sea Giant is so much raw power, though, to where I think I'm in the camp where you just play down the Sea Giant.
Yeah, I'm looking. He could even squeeze in a life tap if he wants to, because by attacking with the Imp Gang boss into the Acolyte, an Imp would spawn, so in that case he could go for life tap, Voidwalker, Sea Giant. Then the board would be full. I don't really know. There's a lot of options here.
I mean, you did just see 1 Icelands come out in your Darkshire Councilman, so I feel like if you take that as a cue for what the situation is, you might feel pretty okay about your odds of the Sea Giant surviving, and not necessarily just getting Doomsayered.
Looks like he is going to value denying the extra card draw over playing the Sea Giant in this situation. The Sea Giant is just a kind of weird card to have as your only card in your hand, because if there is a board clear, like something like a Frost Nova Doomsayer, it's so difficult to play after that. Like it's literally a dead card, so to say, in your hand until you find something like a Forbidden Ritual.
Right, he might have just made the read that because the Ice Lance came out on the Councilman, that he doesn't think there's like a second Frost Nova, or that he isn't expecting. I mean, obviously it's turn 5, so there can't be the Blizzard just yet.
Nope.
So I think that's the read he probably would have made, but I completely agree that that Sea Giant just sticking in hand is very awkward. We'll see if Crane chooses to burn that Frost Nova. First one anyway, and yep.
Yeah, he has to. The Councilman and the Dark Iron Dwarf together are already a huge load of damage. And the other minions too. It was like one Leroy off from from lethal if there was no freeze effect.
All right, well, 2 mana Sea Giant, and Crane does have a few turns, or a couple turns rather, worth of freeze here, so he's not in any immediate trouble, but he definitely needs to dig farther into his deck to find something to chain together to deal with this board. And the 8/8 makes it that much more difficult, because even if he gets something like a Flame Strike next turn, you know, that doesn't deal with that or the Darkshire Councilman immediately.
Yep, I'm going to go for the Blizzard here. I've been that hated something like Arcane Intellect into Frost Nova maybe, but it's nice to keep the Frost Nova for the potential Doomsayer.
Yeah.
Doomsayer draw, so maybe this makes more sense. The only reason why the Frost Nova was something that I was thinking about is that then the board would have been full and there was no room to play anything that's sticky or has any weird abilities that
right,
you
so
don't want to deal with.
INER now forced to kind of consider how much more he wants to extend onto this board. I like this here. Just buff up some minions. You make that a 9/7. You make the Imp Gang Boss a 3/3. It isn't necessarily super relevant in the context of dealing with Flame Strike because really nothing has changed. But you are just putting more damage down, and you're still keeping a fairly healthy stable of minions. We saw he actually chose to pass on playing down a Possessed Villager or a Flame Imp.
And that right there is the card that Crane was hoping to see. He wouldn't have had enough mana to be digging for it with the Arcane Intellect, because Arcane Intellect, Doomsayer, Frost Nova would have been 8 mana, so that would not have worked out. But here oh my goodness, this is so good for Crane right now. This might be the turnaround that he needed in this game.
Right, I'm curious. Now, I'm pretty sure as these players have seen each other's deck list. So what Crane did there with the Novice Engineer basically made it to where INER couldn't play any other minions because they're full board. What was he playing around though? Because I'm pretty sure he knows there's no silences, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah, I mean,
no, there's no silences in there.
No Praised Alchemist, but I mean, you might as well throw it in there. Is there any reason not to? Because the Novice Engineer would die anyway into that effect, so
right.
Might as well do it.
Sure.
Here, Crane, I think it's pretty hard to say no to that Emperor Thorison, because like, how can INER remove it? There's almost no way.
Right, and the condition at which you're looking to use Emperor Thorison
is
a little bit different in this matchup. You're not necessarily needing to get it all on damage spells, because just having more mana flexibility in general against Zoo is better. But he does choose to go with this line of play.
That's very interesting, because it was almost guaranteed to get two turns off, and he would have had a lot of good cards for next turn. Like the Ice Block, for example, he could have just played a few mana and like I'm sure Crane probably plays more Freeze Mage than I do, so we'll see how this is going to play out, and if he is going to find another opportunity to play the Emperor, or does he even need to? Maybe he doesn't even need one.
That's I think it's one of those things too where you get so used to the idea that you're going to play Emperor. That's such a key part of this of playing Freeze Mage.
Yep.
That maybe it is one of those things where he doesn't necessarily need to. Does pick up Shifter Xeris though. Always a fun card. Cool to see what it will turn into.
Yeah, sure is.
Earlier, just the last series, aka Wonder, got an SI7 agent out of it, so always the potential for cool stuff to happen when you have Shifter Xeris.
Yeah, Eater of Secret would be very cool, except for Crane. Everybody else would probably love to see it.
I think everybody except for Crane and the competitive Hearthstone community on Twitter.
Oh my goodness, you might be right on that.
They would probably not find it as enjoyable as I might. But yeah, see, Crane now to the point where he has to start assembling the damage to possibly chain it together all in one turn to be INER. But that said, INER isn't going to have any healing obviously as a Zoo player. Could just play down something like a Blizzard to deal with most of the board. But now the Emperor is coming out.
Okay.
Yep. Emperor into Ice Barrier, so everything in hand going to be brought down by 1 mana. Oh, Tournament Medic.
Free life taps.
I was going to say, right as I say that Zoo Warlock would not have any healing.
That is not enough to pop the Ice Block, I believe. 14 from the hand, and there is 8 damage on the board right now, so that's 22. But with the Ice Barrier up, it's not even close to enough, actually.
Right, so at this point for INER, this is where it gets kind of hairy as the Zoo player. You're at a point where the Freeze Mage is feeling in a good enough position to just begin using Thorsan, play down some secrets, and it's one of those things where, do you even trade out Emperor Thorsan here? I feel like you probably have to, but it doesn't feel good because you're wasting time and resources to do so.
Yeah,
when you really just need to start doing damage.
It's true, but I don't think you can really leave that up. There's so much work to do still. The tournament medic is, I think, is better than a shifter card would be on average. It kind of gives him 3 life taps in a sense, where taking 2 damage then healing it right back works out fairly well. The shifter might take a lot of turns to find anything better, and he certainly does need those extra cards in order to be able to win this game.
Right, so it looks like INER's proceeding forward with the idea that, okay, he's going to get free life taps at this point. He can start pressing damage, and, you know, Crane only has 5 cards in hand and hasn't necessarily thrown any burn in his face yet, so maybe he has time to work with, but it's certainly, I would imagine, the most correct winning line as INER envisions it.
Yeah, seems pretty good. Here from Crane, is it now time for the Blizzard? He's been holding on to it for a long time.
Well, I don't think this is necessarily like a super satisfying Blizzard.
Let's see what he finds here. Yeah. He might go aggressive with the Alexstrasza, but...
Well, you could play down the Alexstrasza, and then over the course of 2 turns...
I kind of don't like it right now, though, because if the Ice Block gets popped, he might not have the follow-up. I mean, the Alexstrasza is still a big threat on the board. It's an 8/8, so it would probably get the job done, but just the Blizzard, I mean, if you don't play it now, you're probably never going to play it, right?
Yeah. Let's see, Alexstrasza. Now looks like he's gonna drop the Loot Hoarder here, and then he just Blizzard. No, pop his own Loot Hoarder. Okay.
This is very interesting to me. Oh, he's keeping the board full. Just gonna go for the barrier. He sees that his opponent only has a limited amount of power on the board, so he's gonna keep his opponent with a full board. I love this strategy. It seems pretty awesome in this situation. He had that second barrier to negate the damage coming in.
Yeah, no, it's really heads up, especially
awesome.
realizing that, hey, all but 2 minions on this board have 1 attack. Yep. So you're really not pushing much damage at all, and this is actually something you frequently see against, Paladin token situations, or specifically Zoo, where they have so many small minions that just aren't doing much.
Yep, with that second Ice Block, that should do it. Going for the Alexstrasza here, there's no real... nothing can go wrong, basically, if he knows or remembers INER's deck list, because with that Ice Block, he can play that and cast something like a Forgotten Torch next turn. Or he can just go for that. I mean, also sets it up pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, he does have those 2 torches, and he has the Frostbolt, so...
Yeah, I need another Shifter Zeros for Arena Jackson or something along those lines at this point.
Yep, and INER can heal too, but only after hurting himself for 2, so not really true healing in that sense.
Yeah.
And INER's gonna go ahead and try to figure out if there's any way he can possibly affect the board state, but...
The answer is no.
The answer is a resounding, you're not pushing enough damage, and now the Freeze Mage is situated.
So you Soulfire your own Tentacle, then you...
There you go. Now you're thinking. Yeah, there's a... I mean, there is some damage in his hand, but at this point, the Pyroblast to the face usually telegraphs the bad things in your immediate future when you see it from the Freeze Mage.
That doesn't really happen very often unless there is a follow-up lethal for next. And INER is gonna go ahead and just concede the game here, and can't really blame him for that one. It certainly was over.
Yep, Crane's gonna go ahead and tie up the series, and as I said at the beginning of the match, that's really what Freeze Mage is there to do, which is deal with a deck like Zoo, possibly deal with slower aggro Shaman, anything that's really minion based and requires the board to win. Freeze Mage can do things where it just blows up your board, or just lets you have a small board that isn't really that intimidating.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see this this Freeze Mage gameplay here as well. Like, there's so many different options. Like, even when I'm trying to see what would I go for, it's not even close to what Crane ended up doing many times. But he won it quite convincingly, I have to say. Yeah,
very subjective lines of play when you are playing that Freeze Mage, and always something to be learned. But INER is still going to have access to his Zoo deck. Obviously, that's still on the board for him. And INER is, interestingly enough, as I mentioned earlier, the first Russian player to ever make it to the championship phase of the Hearthstone Championship Tour. So let's get to know him just a little bit better.
Not many people know who INER is, but he definitely proved throughout his run through the preliminary that he's a formidable opponent. He defeated Oskaka. He showed off impeccable Freeze Mage play. And There's been a lot of players to come out of Eastern Europe who've been really strong. Even though INER is the only Russian player to make it to a championship thus far, I expect big things from him.
That's pretty cool for me to be the first Russian who represents my country in this event. If I win or not, but I'm already here, like the first guy in this moment of Hearthstone history, like new format.
The Russian community is very passionate about Hearthstone. In fact, they often flood the top ends of Legend Ladder. Whenever you play Hearthstone on the Europe servers, you very well be playing against a Russian player. And it's very surprising if you think about it that we haven't had a Russian player here at the championships yet, but INER is here, and he is one of the most respected ones.
I don't have a lot of words. I was just sitting home playing computer games, and now I can travel, meet people, communicate, cool stuff. Difficult part was preliminaries. This final stage, as for me, will be maybe more randomly decided because all players are really good and stakes are really high. So every match will be like kinda even by itself.
Freeze Mage is one of the most technical decks in the game. Even some of the players who are considered the best at the deck still don't think they play it perfectly. INER's coming into this championship having practiced with some of the best Freeze Mage players in the world. Laughing, Dr. Hippie, who we saw at the Winter Championship. So definitely, if you want to learn Freeze Mage, INER's probably the guy to watch.
So I simply think that it's the strongest deck of Hearthstone. I like Freeze Mage and I feel like I'm Freeze Mage. It sounds like a joke every time, like who is the best Freeze Mage in the world, and no, there are. I think if you are Freeze Mage or you are not. I'm INER. To all my friends who are watching me, thank you for the support. I'll try my best.
Echoing what Frodan was saying, I gotta say, someone who works more on the community side of things at Hearthstone, like the Russian community really is a very excited one about Hearthstone. There's a lot of fireside gatherings taking place over there. They're very tight-knit in the way they play, so it's really cool to see INER make it to this stage and have the ability to represent that community.
Yeah, he might be the first Russian player to be in an event like this, but I don't think he's going to be the last one. There's certainly a lot of great players who might be making their mark in the later events.
Right, and he said he is Freeze Mage, so he's going to have the opportunity to prove it here as he queues in his own Freeze Mage versus Crane's Hunter. And Hunter has been kind of one of the surprising storylines, I think, thus far today. We've seen just how consistent it can be after basically being non-existent for the first few weeks of the recent expansion.
Yep, there we see that we didn't even get to talk about it yet, but Crane has chosen to include a Dread Scale in his Hunter deck, which is certainly an interesting inclusion, to say the least.
Right. So I did take Crane's specific version of Hunter out for a spin. I spent a night playing it, and this one, to kind of hit the major points, as you said, Dread Scale's there. It is running double Stampeding Kodo, double Stranglethorn Tiger, and no Savannah Highmane. So based on that, you know, Savannah Highmane is obviously a very powerful card, and it feels super weird to not have it in your Hunter deck. But I will say it does have some situations where it kind of pales in what it can do. You know, cards like Sap, cards like Hex. These are cards that suddenly make Savannah Highmane almost a liability. So there's that. There's Dread Scale. I would have to imagine this deck is designed to deal with more aggressive decks, but it's totally possible I'm just misreading my ladder experience.
No, you're absolutely right. Like, we can see the Explosive Trap there too. Both the Explosive Trap and Dread Scale are some of the better cards against decks like the Zoo Warlock. And he might have been aiming this deck to perform particularly well against that, and maybe the aggressive Shaman list that also have a fair amount of one toughness minions.
Right now, INER obviously not running an aggressive deck. Freeze Mage is one of the slowest and most methodical in the game, but you know, there's still a lot of damage to this Hunter deck. We do, you know, see double Call of the Wild, so there's the potential for a lot of burst. And Stranglethorn Tiger, this is one of the few matchups. You know, we've seen it kind of put in a lot of work today. As a stealth minion, you just can't be targeted, a stealth beast. But Freeze Mage is one of the few decks in tournament that can actually deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty tough to deal with for most decks, but with the Freeze Mage freezes, and you can do quite a bit to it. I mean, the Frost Nova Doomsayer, for example, Crane was only running one deadly shot, so that's not an option to deal with the Doomsayer. But those Stampeding Kodos that were mentioned earlier, those are as good as it gets when it comes to countering the all annoying Doomsayers.
Yeah, there's been a huge revival of some of the more well thought of classic tech cards that kind of were used in 2014. You know, Crazed Alchemist. We've seen a lot of Sylvanas come back. Stampeding Kodo is just all over the place. There's just so many good targets for it. So it's awesome to see Stampeding Kodo in this matchup as well, finding a home, even though it's probably aimed more towards dealing with, you know, stuff like Thunderbluff Valiant or Imp Gang Boss.
Yeah, there we saw that statistic on the board. INER has been playing quite a bit of a mage this season. Seems to be like his kind of go-to deck when it comes to laddering.
Yeah, everyone has that one deck where they feel most comfortable on, and as I was saying earlier, the Freeze Mage players in specific are very prolific in the number of games they play, and the adamant belief that Freeze Mage is the best deck in the game.
That can be argued for a long, long time, but it certainly is very powerful. I'm not gonna deny that. It has its strong and weak matchups, but it has both of those. Not that many people chose to bring it to this tournament. I believe we had 3 Freeze Mages in here. Whereas there was much more warrior, shaman, warlock, and hunter. So it's like 5th most popular class.
Some of the players I've been talking to lately are not super sure that Freeze Mage is kind of one of those tier 1 decks anymore. There are a lot of classes and decks that it doesn't necessarily match up with super well right now.
Yep.
But like I said, the people who are longtime Freeze Mage players absolutely believe, and you know, there's really just no convincing them.
Yeah, it's kind of the same with rogue players. Every
Yep.
matchup is good for a good matchup for a good rogue player.
Yeah, I get it. Saying you can't tell me there's a bad matchup for Hunter, even though I know a few of them. But
Alright, I'm not gonna say it then. Here Crane has a couple of options. He could go for the Houndmaster or he could go for the Tiger. The Houndmaster is more power immediately because he gets to attack with that taunt and everything. But the Stranglethorn Tiger is much better on the mana because next turn he is able to play the Houndmaster and Hero Power. Otherwise, if he went for the Houndmaster right now, he would be floating 1 extra mana on both of those turns.
right, we see those 1/1s on the board from INER, and yeah, Blood Mage Thalnos is an extremely powerful 1/1. I would say arguably the most powerful 1/1 in the game, and it's something you usually want to respect. But Crane took a long time thinking over that turn and kind of realized he was going to force INER to do the trading. And even though this is a slower version of Hunter than some of the earlier builds from, say, last year or even the beginning of this year, you still have to be the aggressor when you're playing against Freeze Mage.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like any deck except for maybe an Assault Paladin has to be the aggressor in that one. Maybe even the Paladin sometimes. Like as much as there is healing.
Right, yeah, you definitely don't want to get Freeze Mage get situated, because that's when bad things start happening. It looks like the Houndmaster is going to come down, push 7 damage, and you can follow that up with the Hero Power. And you're probably not going to put down the Explosive Trap, which is not going to really see any value in this matchup.
No, not at all. It's more like a problem because you need to pay 2 mana to have the potential to draw an extra card with your quick shot.
Right. So INER does have the ability to put the breaks down on this. If he's feeling extra ballsy, though, he could go for the Emperor Thorsan. What do you think? Is that a little too greedy at this point, or do you think the Emperor Thorsan is a reasonable line of play?
No, I think it's way too greedy. He's looking at 11 damage, and he has 2 Frost Novas in his hand, so I think both of those are... like he can easily spare one here and maybe go for the Arcane Intellect to like have more options going forward. Just taking 11 so early on, it doesn't seem like an option, and there could be maybe a deadly shot for the Emperor, so it wouldn't get any additional value from anything that Crane has. He's not gonna go for a Nova though, and instead opting to go for the Icelands. I'm sure he would have done the Nova if he didn't pick up that Loot Hoarder, but he values the card draw, extra card draw for his next turn so highly that he's going to use the lands instead and take that 4 damage from the Houndmaster.
Yeah, so Crane has in hand 2 copies of Unleash the Hounds, and this is another card that lately is kind of players are debating if you even need to bring this card anymore with Unleash the Hounds. And you know, we see in this matchup it's kind of a dead card to the point to where like maybe there's consideration to just playing it now just to get at least some kind of value from it. You're only getting 1 Hound for 3 mana, but if the Hounds do survive, you do have Call of the Wild on next turn with Leok. Maybe that's something you consider, but like, what else are you going to do? Are you just going to kill command and hero power, or? Yeah,
I mean, as miserable as the Unleash the Hound is, it's not getting any better. It's very unlikely that INER would have multiple minions on the board later on. If there's multiple minions, then it's probably going to be just 2. So yeah, I absolutely agree. I think there's no reason not to cast the Unleash the Hounds because there are no better alternatives.
Right, and you don't play the second one here because at least you can squeeze in a hero power, put down the trap, and as much as, you know, the trap really isn't actually going to affect things in terms of the board state, to your point, if you do draw that quick shot later, you want to go ahead and invest the mana now so you can get the potential card draw off of it.
No, that does help a little bit. But yeah, like what we were talking about once the match started, that this Crane's list is very much stacked against aggro. That definitely, after seeing those two Unleash the Hounds, that definitely is the case. Trying to target decks that play multiple small minions. Call of the Wild. He already had one in his hand, but he actually drew a second one from the top. So even if this board gets cleared, there's still gonna be some animal companions. And after the Hover dies, actually all three are going to be there. In case of that there would be only room for 2 animal companions from the Call of the Wild, I believe that it's in alphabetical order, which ones you get.
I believe it is. Willing to be wrong on this one, but I believe it is. He could play it on the second Call of the Wild now.
Yep.
And so if you play it down now, like, does the Blizzard telegraph that there wasn't a Flame Strike, or I think Blizzard actually might have just been the better play in that situation, because then the Tiger isn't attacking you for last turn. So yeah, I think you can't actually read anything into the Flame Strike not coming out.
Right.
But Call of the Wild does represent, 5 damage now.
It's true, but he couldn't hero power with it, so it looks like he's going to go for a different line here, because he also he's predicting that that Flame Strike, and this is more damage.
Yeah, I like this. I like this better.
Yep.
Good call with the mats, Avitz. Good call.
Even gonna throw out that fiery bat right there.
Yep, and there's the Doomsayer. But I would imagine you're probably just gonna want to Flame Strike the board, as it does literally clear everything. Yep, Flame Strike Doomsayer.
Yeah. Even gonna play that one. Funnily enough, if there was another fiery bat and Crane could put Inner down to 1 HP, that would be lethal, because the Ice Block would not help him in the beginning of the next turn.
Well, Crane can pop the block here with a Call of the Wild. And then you put the Mage in a situation where needs to find that second block, needs to Alexstrasza, do something to get his health up. But otherwise, over the course of 2 to 3 turns, the hero power just wins the game.
I think you just unleash a Hound here, because if there's not, well, it's kind of tricky spot, because if there is an Alexstrasza coming up, then you're going to be in really bad shape, because all of those animal companions from the Call of the Wild are going to get cleared.
Right, and so if you do make the Hound here, you hit face with it, you hero power, you bring him down to 2, so you can definitely pop the block next turn.
I think that's a better play, because even if you know that there's an Ice Block, the Call of the Wild, yes, it pops the Ice Block, but he does not have the damage required to finish his opponent next turn. Like, Inner doesn't really need anything.
So the difference this makes is that it pops the block a turn sooner, essentially.
Yep.
All right, let's see how this pans out. Second
Another
Ice
Block. So if he chose to not play the Emperor here, he would actually be safe from the Hound. But it's going to be so significant here.
Unleash the Hound.
Yeah, another Hound.
A lot of dogs.
What a hero.
You could unleash the Hounds, hero power, and then also just play it on the Tiger.
Yep.
Which I think I like here, because you basically force a Frost Nova or a Blizzard, or else it's game, or Alexstrasza, but...
It's really good.
Yeah, let's see what happens here.
First going for that, and then unleash that one hero Hound. It's gonna kind of trade with the Ice Block, I suppose.
You see Inner frowning.
Wow.
Just one Hound.
Yeah. So it ended up that this line from Crane, going for the Call of the Wild first, worked out much better. Just getting those Ice Blocks popped back to back there. Yeah, and that's game right there. There's no way out of this for Inner. Even if he freezes the face, freezes the board, the Hunter hero power is still gonna do it.
I was gonna say, he can't freeze that hero power, so goes ahead and dies the Explosive Trap. So I was wrong. The Explosive Trap did do something. Obviously after the game was basically decided, but cool to see Explosive Trap getting work these days. It's been a long time since we've seen him.
Yeah, it's not a bad card at all. It's just a little bit like weird, maybe in a meta where there's some Acolyte of Pains and Enrage cards from the Warrior, and a lot of the maybe even Shaman cards don't all die to that. There's a lot of
like
tree toughness cards, even Tunnel Shock. So it's a tiny bit off at times, and a little bit unreliable.
I agree with you. So unless you're targeting aggro, which we have seen Crane was definitely doing, although he gets that win against Freeze Mage.
Yep.
But he's going to go ahead and go up 2-1 on the series now. How important do you think it is to get the win with the Hunter there? I mean, I think there were a lot of other targets for that Hunter deck, so I think Inner would have been a lot more advantageous for Inner to get the win on that Freeze Mage now. But
I think so too. I think the Hunter was decently positioned against almost everything, or maybe even every single deck from Inner. So I would have expected that Hunter to pick up its win somewhere. But Yeah, if the mage was to pick up a win, that would have been a huge deal, because the mage might struggle with some of Crane's remaining decks.
Yeah, we did just see there at the bottom, we haven't even discussed it, but both players banned each other's warriors, which
Yes.
not super surprising given that Freeze Mage was brought, even though, let's see here, I believe both of these, yeah, we had Patron Warrior from Crane, and obviously very well respected as a Patron player, and then we had Tempo Warrior from INER, so it wasn't even necessarily the Control Warrior, but Armor Smith can generate enough armor to mess up those matchups potentially.
Yeah, Freeze Mage kind of infamous for having only a limited amount of damage in it, and it can deal that 30, but not that 60, which can be achieved through the armoring up and the armor smiths of Warrior.
Right, so Crane is going to go ahead and queue up that Shaman deck, and INER is bringing out his Freeze Mage once again. And about it earlier, if the Shaman gets a very specific curve into that Doomhammer on 5, there's a lot of direct damage, and actually INER got his win against Crane on Shaman in Freeze Mage, so very much a winnable matchup. But if it gets to the late game, Freeze Mage definitely favored.
Yep. Here, Crane looking at the potential coin Totem Golem if he wants to get the big minion out there. Could just go for the Finley if he wants to save the coin, but usually in this situation we've seen players almost every single time just go for the 2-drop first and then play the 1-drop when you have the overload.
Yeah, thing from below too, even though it looks like Crane will be swapping hero powers pretty soon.
Yep.
Still going to get a lot of discount just from the Tuskar Totemic and the Totem Golem, so not necessarily as impactful a minion in this matchup either as it would be, say, against an aggressive deck.
Right, no hesitation from INER. They are picking up the Doomsayer from the top and just place it immediately. It didn't even reach the hand on our screen. It just like went straight to the board from the top of the deck.
Yeah, curious to see if Crane plays down the Finley, but nope, goes ahead and just passes. I think that's one of those situations where I would have just played down the Finley to get the hero power, but Crane evaluates it's worth keeping that potential source of damage.
Maybe he wants to get some more hero powers in for the thing from below, or just overall considers it to be a better hero powers than the other ones are right now.
Sure.
Let's see if it's a Mana Tide.
Don't say that to me. Okay, it's just Flame Tug. Thank
pretty
goodness. No, it's just Flame Tug.
Okay.
In the varying degrees of things you don't want to see off Tuskar Totemic, I think the highest one is Totem Golem, followed by Mana Tide, and then Flame Tongue.
In some situations, Mana Tide is the best one. Against the aggro, you want to get the Totem Golem, but against control decks, quite often it is better to get the Mana Tide, because those slow decks can really struggle to remove it early on.
Agreed. All right, so might actually see... I feel like Lightning Storm might just be the play here. When are you ever going to get value from Lightning Storm otherwise?
Yeah, I think we're going to see it here.
I mean, if he doesn't, though, he can play the... Well, he could have played the Flame Warrior's Faceless on this turn, so...
Oh, man. That's pretty rough, I gotta be honest.
Armor up!
I don't... like.
You're taking it long.
That's... yeah, that's really rough. These are not the ones that Crane wanted to see. He wanted to see a life tap, even though it's kind of like weird to take damage from against the Freeze Mage that also damages you. That would have been like still a better one than any of these three. The best one would have been the Hunter Hero Power, and something like a Rogue Hero Power, maybe Druid one would have also been fine. Like Druid one is an excellent tool to kind of like raise the mage and get the extra damage with the
Right. We see INER just kind of like, nod like, yeah, that's not as bad as it could have been. So the Shaman definitely does not want to take this to late game, even with the mild armor gain. Because really, I mean, just generating armor isn't actually that impactful unless it's off stuff like Shield Block or Armor Smiths, where you're just able to compound it and gain upwards of like 10 armor on a turn. That's where it becomes problematic for the Freeze Mage.
Yep. The INER Forgotten Torch seems to be the play, but what do you torch? Do you torch the Flame Tongue or do you torch the Tuskar Totemic?
I think the Flame Tongue probably represents more damage over time.
I mean, it's 4 and the Tuskar Totemic is 3, so it's close. Looks like he's going to want to remove both of those minions right here, right now, just to ease off a little bit on the pressure.
All right, so 3 mana with the Overload, forced to essentially choose between the Argent Horse Rider and the Feral Spirits. Feral Spirits, I think I like them more here.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Just go ahead and just get the more stats and more damage for the next couple turns. I
think it's an easy choice because that puts more power on the board, and also it goes very well with his hand right now, because the Overload for 2 is not a problem at all for his next turn, because he wants to play one of those flame-rated facelesses anyway, and he's going to still have that 4.
All right, Frost Nova comes out, locks up the board, and yeah, for Crane, this is the part where you've already seen one Doomsayer.
Yep.
How much do you invest into the possibility that there could be a second one waiting for you?
You can't really play around it that much. I mean,
Yep.
it also only has 5 power on the board right now, but there we go. That just went up quite a bit, adding 7 in there. Frost Nova. I wouldn't be surprised to see even an Ice Lance on the faceless, just to like, kind of like set up the Flame Strike to be a little bit better and be able to clear the 7/7.
Yeah, it definitely telegraphs what you're going to do, but I think to your point just a second ago, it's not one of those things where you can be overly convinced with that, or overly concerned rather with those things. At some point, you just have to go for it. So.
Yep.
Yeah, and if you're Crane now, I mean, you can play down the Horse Rider. That would survive the Flame Strike and force a trade from one of the engineers, but I think I like this better.
It's better because I'm sure Crane smells the Flame Strike coming, but it's only going to be 6 damage on that. Oh wow!
Blizzard.
Well, that's that's a good draw. That's an excellent draw. Getting that the Blood Mage down with Blizzard combination, being able to clear most of the stuff and freeze the last one on the board. Because taking that 7, it would have not been a good thing for him. Like, that would have been a big deal to take the extra 7 as INER there. Even though he has the Alexstrasza to potentially heal up, still staying at 21 right now, it's not something that could have been achieved with the Flame Strike.
Yeah, and INER having these small minions on the board that are able to poke down threats is actually, I think, a bigger deal than maybe people would assume it to be. You know, we look at what is in Crane's hand, and there are a couple minions that if they come down, you know, Novice Engineers, Blood Mage, Thalnos can just deal with.
Yeah, it looks like Crane is a little bit like running out of gas here. Like, it's just, he does have that thing from below, but the rest of the hand is not that spectacular. The Lightning Bolt and the Rock Biter, those are 3 damage each, but it's not gonna do much. He really needs to find something like a Doom Hammer, and he needs to find it soon.
Yeah, this is where getting the either Life Tap or Steady Shot or even Shapeshift Hero Power would have been much more advantageous than Armor Up, which Armor Up, obviously, like we were saying, represents kind of in the long term the potential ability to outlast your opponent, but it's not a place at all you want to be with this win condition.
No, like, you want to be aggressive against the Freeze Mage. Wow.
Lightning Bolt onto the Thalnos, that cannot feel good.
No. Oh my.
Yeah, might just see the Flame Strike come out, clean up with the Novice Engineer, and yeah, you're in a very good spot. Your opponent has 3 cards.
Even that Pyro is a decent pickup here, because he should be able to safely play the Alexstrasza, unless there's something like a Doom Hammer right now, because that's kind of scary. Nope.
Yeah, and the thing is, you know, INER knows that Crane's not running something like Ancestral Knowledge, so there's not even really the chance for just like the hand to just blow up in size again and there suddenly be a lot of options. Crane is absolutely just kind of living off the top of his deck. He has some pieces in his hand, but after seeing the Lightning Bolt go on Thalnos, you have to feel pretty good about your odds.
Yeah, I mean, Crane could play his entire hand and still use this hero power. That's how little he has to work with here. Looks like he's going to go with all of his minions, but those minions are fairly miserable, not gonna lie.
Yeah, he's just going to try to get that damage in. Yeah, gets him down to 15, respectable amount, but yeah. Keeps the Rock Biter for maybe the Doom Hammer draw, which is what he would like to use that for.
Yeah.
But yeah, INER has so much room to play around with right now.
It does. Aken Intellect most likely to be the first thing he plays this turn. You know, like increasing the plays that he has available to him. Then he could follow it up with maybe a Blizzard. Alexstrasza is a little bit too much. You probably, or he could actually. There is like a decent line where he, if he Alexstrasza his opponent and Iceland's one of the 4/1s, trades for the abusive, like Iceland's the Argent Horse Rider. Oh right, he's gonna go for that one. I actually like this a lot.
Yeah, I mean, why draw out the game when you can just win?
Yep. I mean, don't give him extra time to get the Doom Hammer. Why would you? And he knows that there's only 2 cards in the Crane's hand, and no matter what those 2 are, there would be no chance for Crane to deal 15, so he doesn't need to make a defensive play, and goes for this instead, and the game is over.
Yep, going to be rewarded with a win. Just going to drag that Pyroblast to the face, and that is going to be game. Or he's going to use Fireball Unforgotten. Why wouldn't you use Pyroblast?
I don't get it.
You get to so seldomly use Pyroblast.
Yeah, quite often we don't see Pyro do all that much, but when it does, it usually wins the game. But
INER just playing with my emotions at this point. I felt certain he was going to go for that Pyroblast, but he does manage to tie up the series, so regardless of his shoddy Pyroblast usage, he is right back on even footing, and now we have ourselves a best-of-3 series.
Well played by INER, but also like really rough from Crane to be getting those options from the Murloc, ending up with a completely worthless warrior hero power. He didn't do anything at all in that game.
Yeah, Finley took Crane on an adventure he did not want to go on there. Was hoping for something a little more aggressively oriented.
Yeah, you want to go. You're playing an aggressive deck, and you end up having the priest hero power, warrior hero power as the options. That's kind of rough.
All right, so we see the options left for both players. Crane has Shaman and Warlock. INER has Rogue and Warlock. So both these Warlocks are Zoo. You know, obviously we've seen INERs thus far. Crane, as I might have mentioned earlier, I think it was you mentioned this, double Doom Guard in Crane's list, so
Yep.
different reach for each of these Warlock decks.
Absolutely. There's also some other differences. For example, INER is running a Sea Giant, whereas Crane is not playing one. There's only one Darkshire Councilman in INER's list. That's strange to me. I think card is like one of their best ones.
It is. Crane also running the single copy of Crazed Alchemist.
Yep.
So that's worth noting. The Rogue deck from INER is very much the Miracle Rogue deck you have come to know and love and be scared of if you don't kill the Auctioneer
Yep.
on ranked play. So.
And what stands out is maybe that he's running Xaril Poisoned Mind, which is one of the new legendaries from Whispers of the Old Gods, which can be very powerful, but it's most rogues don't include it from what I've seen. There's also only one conceal, so pulling off the Auctioneer conceal combination to kind of like set up for those big Auctioneer turns, it might be a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised you brought it up that Xaril of the Poisoned Mind is not used more. I felt certain that, you know, when I first saw that card, like, wow, it gives you 2 cards, 3/2 body's not terrible either. But it is one of those cards that some pros just do not necessarily believe is fast enough or necessarily gives you like a big enough board presence to use.
I think that the card is actually like really, really good. It's an excellent card, but the problem is really that Tomb Pillager is also 4 mana, Violet Teacher is also 4 mana, and you can only run so many 4-drops because you can only play one of them on turn 4, and on turn 5 you rather play a 5 mana card. So I think that's kind of why Xaril has been in the shadow of those other cards.
Yeah, that said, we still do occasionally see him pop in from time to time, and the toxins he can give you can be extremely useful. I mean, you know, deal damage, draw a card, stealth a minion, so there are a lot of options there that are very good. And obviously, with the miracle condition of just drawing your entire deck, a 1-mana spell is super useful.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is a powerful card. There's so many things you can do with it, but it is a little bit slow, so that's why we more see like a Violet Teacher, because Violet Teacher on its own can often win games against aggressive decks with plays like Preparation, Eviscerate, or Backstabs. There's so many, like those ones that you spawn for kind of free can get you the advantage on the board that you need to kind of snowball away with the game.
Absolutely, and Crane, we just saw his Shaman deck, but yeah, we're going to hop right into Game 5 here, and it is going to be Crane's Shaman versus INER's Miracle Rogue, and this is one of those situations where the Shaman, generally speaking, if it gets the quick enough start, can kind of neutralize a lot of what makes rogues so good in this matchup. You know, just don't give them time to draw cards, basically.
Yes.
Put on the pressure. Just go ahead and destroy them before they can potentially chain together all those draws. But, you know, Crane had kind of clunky draws last game, and Freeze Mage was another matchup where I think Shaman was kind of favored. So I don't think the amount that the Shaman is favored against the Rogue is necessarily, like, incredibly difficult to deal with.
I think it's fairly meaningful, though. I think it's Crane is certainly the favorite here, and he is already looking at the Tunnel Shock and the Feral Spirit. If only he finds something nice for turn 2, things might get out of control for INER. But there's always those backstab and the preparation plays that can give you the early tempo to kind of keep up with the board before you take too much damage from those.
Yeah, INER's hand at the moment, not the best.
Oh, it's really rough, but it can turn into really nice things pretty fast too if he picks up the right cards. Like Edwin Van Cleef would be absolutely huge. I believe there's a... Well, Crane is not playing an Urchok. There's no Urchok, no Hex, so if he was to pick up an Edwin Van Cleef, he could make it just like a 12-12 on turn 2.
Right.
That would be ridiculous, and probably just end the game right there.
Well, we see Sir Finley Murgleton once again, not necessarily giving Crane what he wants, but this time Crane does opt to take the Paladin hero power, so he will at least be able to generate the 1/1s, which against the Rogue just mean that the dagger, you know, has to be used for cleanup duty more than anything else. Although Fan of Knives super powerful against 1/1s.
Yes, and INER might have not picked up the Edwin Van Cleef, but that Assai Agent is still an excellent draw. He has option. He could potentially go for a coin Assai prep Fan of Knives, and that would only leave Crane with a 1/2 Murloc on the board.
Yeah, we saw on turn 1, Crane chose to put down Sir Finley Murgleton to protect the Tunnel Trog. That could come out on turn 2 and then be buffed by the Wolves later on, but draws a Totem Golem after. So had the option to play that last turn, chose not to.
There's Violet Teacher suddenly with those few nice pickups from INER. Actually going his way, I gotta say.
Yeah, that's just how quickly things can play or can go when you're playing against Rogue.
Yep. Like just picking up the one Assai Agent, it was a huge deal.
Yep, just prep the old Fan of Knives, a bunch of free spells, and just go from there.
And also the Violet Teacher prep zap is so big against something like the Flame-Rated Faceless if it was to ever come down.
Yeah, the hand's coming together really nicely here. for INER.
Oh, he's going to go for the conceal. He wants to find another trade with the SI agent. Well, seems alright to me. I mean,
Oh, the potential Flame Juggler punish, though.
oh, wow, you're right. Well, I mean, if you Crane, you gotta go for it, right?
Yeah, no, there's
50,
you absolutely take this.
Get
You
a
take
huge
this.
lead. Oh, and he hits it.
Oh, you see INER, not excited about that, but yeah, that is great for Crane.
Yeah,
Basically protecting the second wolf there.
yeah, that's pretty rough for INER right there. But it was a card that he knows the Crane is running, so it was a risk that he wanted to take, and it didn't pay off this time. INER considering a prep zap here, but if there was a Flame Wraither Faceless coming up soon, it might kind of backfire, but he's just gonna do it and hope that there's no 7/7s coming just yet.
I mean, this is still really good for INER.
It is, yeah. I mean, he just got those 1/1s on the board and he's way ahead. And as a Shaman, you also you wanna, well, with every class, you always wanna stay ahead on the board. But with Shaman, there's cards like the Abusive Sergeants and Flame Tongue Totem and that sort of things that are much more beneficial when you have a meaningful board on your own, so you get to make better trades. Right now, the trade options are kind of limited, and there's no way to take out the teacher.
Right, so Crane does have 5 mana to play with. Could just go Totem Golem, Feral Spirits, but it doesn't feel good, and you're pretty much all but locking yourself out of your next turn.
Yeah, INER also out of stuff.
Yeah.
There's only an Auctioneer in his hand right now.
I was gonna say, Rogue is not normally this quick, at least this build of Rogue, but there are situations where you can just accelerate with those preparations. So
Double
we've
preps,
seen
yeah.
both prep now. The Fan of Knives helped, the SI7 agent, and that Violet Teacher generating those tokens have suddenly just blown this game wide open for the Rogue.
Yeah, the Golem Shield kind of just vanished as well. It didn't accomplish anything at all.
Alright, expect Finley to trade with one of these 1/1 students, and
Ooh, not the card INER was hoping to draw. It's a little bit slow here. Spell power is not something he is able to use.
right, so we'll see what happens here. The Wolf is going to go down. I would imagine the Totem Golem is going to trade into that Violet Teacher, though.
I think we must hit an abusive Sergeant trade, actually.
Oh, nope, yeah, that is,
With the
that is
Murloc
strictly
and,
better. Good call.
And after that, maybe go for the Flame Juggler. Let's see if he gets it again. Another 50-50 coming from Crane's Flame Juggler. Is he gonna hit it?
Is this the best?
I believe it
play?
was, yeah, it was a miscall. We saw from the arrow that he was like kind of hovering it over.
Yeah, I think you have to respect it enough, though, to just get rid of it.
Yep.
All right, this is still, this is still not looking like a great situation. INER invested so many early resources. Probably going to be very excited to see the Auctioneer just come down.
Oh, man. 6 mana 4/4.
I mean, you can use a dagger, at least get rid of the Abusive Sergeant.
It's true.
So you'd force an entire board trade based on what you can see.
I mean, this was the... I feel like this absolutely was the right play. He had to do it. As terrible as it is to play the Auctioneer like that, there was no other options. Like, what could you do? Play a 2/2 Van Cleave? Cold Blood his enemy minion to combo? Like, it was just terrible.
Yeah, so I think when we look back at this game, obviously nothing is decided. This is still very much a game, but it'll be interesting to see whether that prep zap on the Flame Juggler decided kind of more than we thought it might at the time. But we do see the Argent Horse Rider and the Flame Wraith Faceless come down, the Auctioneer goes away, and INER's in a pretty dire spot with very little in the way of resources.
That's right. He could go for the Cold Blood on the Horse Rider here before going for the Fan to get the bigger Van Cleave, but I don't know. Either way, it's looking really, really bad.
Yeah.
I don't think you do it. It's just Fan first, but
I mean, your Van
there's no
Cleave
card you can get.
isn't really that exciting either against these 7/7 Flame Wraith Faceless.
Not at all.
Nice brotherhood, friend.
Oh, he is going to go for it just to get the 6/6 Van Cleave.
All right, let's see what happens here. Goes for the Fan of Knives. Yeah, Shiv does not do anything there. All right. So at this point, hard to imagine Crane trading, but nope. Rockbiter is going to actually just go ahead and win the game for him. He's 3 damage off lethal, and he has found it. So Crane will go up in this series 3-2, 1 game away from booking his passage to the semifinals.
Yeah, we were kind of expecting to see something like this, but INER did make it pretty exciting with that SI agent and the teacher. But that turn 5 where he just went Blood Mage, I think that's where he fell too far behind. But that's the downside of playing the preparations. I mean, yeah, it gives you tempo, but then you lose out on cards.
Yeah, no, the Rogue decks today we've seen have found themselves in interesting situations have been forced to react accordingly. Obviously, with Miracle, you have a specific game plan in mind. But one of the nice things about Rogue is that you can start to piece together alternative contingency plans kind of mid-match based on what you have. And yeah, 2 preps in the hand feels bad initially, but INER did at least chain it together enough to make things interesting. And like I said, I'd like to go back and kind of visit that preparation sap maybe after we're done casting today and kind of see if we feel that was the correct call, but it did help him survive.
It's definitely something that can be discussed. It's a tough call. I can't really tell because it is much tempo, and you get those extra 1/1s. It's actually a big deal to get those extra 1/1s, but still, like using 2 cards to return a 2-mana card to your opponent's hand. You no longer have the sap, and like 2-mana card, it's always to play again as well.
Right, a 2-mana card that has an effect when it comes down to the battle cry aspect of it.
Right, so if he was able to just like fight that 2-mana card, maybe he would have still had the prep and sap for the auction or something. But we could speculate about this forever. And
Sure.
Let's instead move on to the next game, which is going to be the Zoo Warlock Mirror.
Yeah, so INER fighting for his tournament life here at the Europe Spring Championship. If he does not win this, he is out. So obviously that's a change to this particular tournament. Best of 7 single elimination. Zoo Mirror is very, very swingy, or at least it has been in the past, based on the openings here. And Crane's opening is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So looking at the starting hands, that's not the worst hand I've seen from a Zoo Warlock. Looking at INER's hand, because he does have like pretty nice turn 2, pretty nice turn 3, pretty nice turn 4, but not starting on turn 1 in a Zoo Warlock Mirror. That's a huge deal. You never ever want to do that.
I mean,
like,
Crane can
you have
just
to go
use
one
the
drop.
coin here and just go on a perfect curve.
He could do anything he wants, like as long as he doesn't just pass here or coin a life tap, he should be good.
Yeah, I really like just going ahead and coining out both these 1-drops, putting a lot of power on the board. You get so much damage in early from that Flame Imp, and then you follow up with the Dark Peddler, so...
I wouldn't mind that one bit. I mean, you could also just go for the Flame Imp if the Voidwalker is kind of only 1 extra power, so kind of keeping the coin, but...
Right.
Yeah, I would probably do that as well. Just go for both of those, but just the Flame Imp is also a valid option.
Yeah, Crane goes ahead, passes, and Crane took a lot of time to kind of consider what that turn was going to look like for him, and hard to blame him.
No, this is not a mistake by any means. Saving the coin is very valuable going forward, and the Voidwalker wouldn't be that big of a deal to have it on the board.
Right, so now he does have the option on his next turn to play something like Peddler plus the 1-drop he gets from it. He could also look at just playing down the Darkshire Councilman, which is an extremely powerful minion.
Yeah, it sure is. So coin Councilman maybe and trade those minions would be an option.
I mean, I like that. You just start building up your Councilman, you put a Voidwalker down next turn as a speed bump, and just keep going from there. I mean, you have cheap drops.
Yeah, I wouldn't feel too good about just like playing a Peddler and coining out a 1-drop, because then if there's an Imp Gang boss, it's almost like you're falling a little bit behind on the board. Something like Dark Peddler and coin Voidwalker could maybe work. It can get punished by a Direwolf Alpha or something similar, but it would let him kind of like avoid trading his 3-2 for the smaller minion on the board.
Now this matchup, there's so much nuance to it, because obviously what Zoo does, if you've ever played against it, is use Abusive Sergeants, Direwolf Alphas, Power Overwhelmings. They do a lot of board manipulation to make certain minions do more damage, and it's Crane sitting here, it represents him trying to figure out every potential way that this could go south on him. And, Imp Gang Boss coming down on 3 is probably the biggest thing he's concerned about right now, and we do see it in INER's hand.
He is going to go for that Voidwalker protection for his Flame Imp, but not going to go for the Peddler. Once again, values the coin higher. Just gonna play the excuse me, the Possessed Villager. And yeah, INER here, now with 3 mana. He does have a buff for that. He could play the Abusive Sergeant to find the trade for that Voidwalker. He could play a Knife Juggler to go alongside with it. But quite often you want to go for the Imp Gang boss on turn 3, but
yeah, it's a very powerful minion to develop in this situation, because you're just going to basically get a lot of value out of it.
But it also gets traded quite easily by the Flame Imp if there's Direwolf Alpha, for example, so might be better to just do it like this. Oh, he's gonna go for the Soulfire. He's gonna go for the strongest possible tempo in this situation. I think it might be a good call. We'll see how it works out. The Abusive Sergeant is going to, or the Villager, or the Dark Peddler, excuse me, is going to get traded by that 1/1. And there's going to be some more minions added as well.
Right, we see the Soulfire coming into Crane's hand, and INER just used his own. Soulfire is a card that wasn't necessarily being run in Zoo, a couple weeks ago
Nope.
very consistently. It's a more recent addition. Gives the Zoo player some additional reach, so definitely helps out. And it's basically just one copy.
Yeah, it's interesting because Soulfire is a card that's also making its comeback, so to say. Some Reno Warlock lists, it wasn't a common thing in Reno locks. I don't think we can call it a comeback though. It was like never played in Reno locks. But anyway, like nowadays a lot of players are choosing to play that card in Reno lock lists, and it's very powerful with its tempo game. I mean, yes, you discard a card, and sometimes you might have the Reno in your hand, and then you're gonna lose the game. But you can also try to hold on to it until you kind of have a big hand where the chances of discarding something important is less likely, or you just avoid playing it if it's possible.
Right, definitely a very powerful tool in its own right, but we see here Crane has suddenly kind of lost control of his board and has to figure out how to get it back. Now, he has his own Soulfire, but he also has Doomguard, so this is kind of an unintuitive situation where he has 2 cards in hand that will discard other cards.
It's like really strange. He could go for a... he could go for like a Peddler 1-drop Soulfire, then just hope that the Doom card doesn't get discarded. I think that's probably what he's going for, so we're gonna see the play maybe, or just the Tentacle make any sense.
I was thinking about it. I mean, it's great because you're thinking, okay, Forbidden Ritual at some point is going to come out, but I don't think you can play that far ahead, although Crane absolutely thinks he does, so...
Yeah, he is going to pick the Tentacle.
So let's see what gets dropped here. Hopefully, he's hoping the coin, but we see that it is still green, so... That's not bad, though. Dark Iron Dwarf was also not bad.
That's really good for Crane. That's the best discard, because he wants to play the Doom card next turn. And now, by keeping the coin as well, if he was to pick up another 1-mana card, then he could play the 1-mana card alongside with the coin Doom card and discard absolutely nothing.
Right now, that Tentacle of N'Zoth kind of coming back to bite him just a little bit.
I don't really...
Well, no, actually, I guess it... I mean, it injures your Dark Peddler, but at the same time... Yeah, maybe it's not. Well, we do see. To your point.
Oh, there's a 1-mana card. Okay, so
there
that's what I'm just thinking about the tentacle, like what did it really accomplish for Crane? But let's move on past that, and there's gonna be the coin Doom card coming in, and looks like he's just gonna push for it. I mean, it'll be way too much damage wasted if he went for minions.
At this point, when there's 5 1/1s on the board, you're pretty much being the aggressor now. The time to trade is over because. Oh no!
That is a great card for INER to pick up right now. 1 mana 8/8. That's much better than the Doom card that used to be the biggest minion on the board, but that's not gonna be the case.
No, and to be honest, the way the board is looking, Crane going on the offensive is certainly the correct play. I don't disagree, but Zoo just trades so well, right? Just trades so efficiently. So. Yeah, you're left with a 5/7, and I think INER is just content to let him have that.
But there was absolutely no trade for Crane there. Like, you don't bump a 5/7 into a 1/1, or like your buffed.
It's just one of those things where you're making the best of a bad situation. But
exactly.
All right, we're gonna see Crane. I think he just has to keep it up at this point.
Yep, just go for it, I guess.
I mean, you can force Crane or force INER to make the trade if INER is not able to deal with him this turn. But
if you Crane, you're probably not feeling too good right now.
No.
Like all of the options are really bad. Like, do you attack into the Imp Gang boss maybe and try to find more value from your Doom? Because going for phase, it's pretty desperate because dealing the last 8 damage is going to be so tricky. And there's a leader Jenkins. Is that enough?
I do not. I think it's one-off lethal.
One-off. Yeah, even if the juggles from the juggler, it will not be enough just yet. Very close though.
Yeah, you just Mortal Coil, see if you find a power overwhelming. Yep. Oh no, that'll do it though.
But unless the juggles, like it's so unlikely though.
Oh no.
That was a little bit weird on the sequence. What if the?
Oh. No, he gets it.
He got it, but that was a huge mistake. Potentially game losing for him. Like not attacking with both of his tentacles before playing that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, INER got a little bit caught up, and you can kind of see him now.
He forgot the knife juggler synergy right there.
Yeah, we are going to go to Game 7, so the winner of this next game is going to be the winner of this series. I really want to see INER take a moment, though, kind of calm down, pull himself together here, because this is not the point where you can afford to have a mistake like that.
What just happened? That was probably the most breathtaking moment we've seen today.
One overkill. I was going to say, one overkill became exact lethal. So
Like that could have been game deciding right there. Like the trade's not that great. There could have been some potential for Crane to like INER would have been had to like make some panic trades, and he also like made some attack first, right?
Yeah.
Before playing the Leroy. So he couldn't have gotten that good of a trade, and maybe Crane would have picked up a power overwhelming Soulfire.
Right.
Maybe even lethal, so we saw it on INER's face. Yeah, now is a good time to take a little bit of water and just get your head together, because it's all going to be on the line in Game 7.
I was going to say 95% of the way, just super tight play, and then just at the end, he saw that abusive Sergeant, got very excited. Just take a few seconds here before he gets to the next match and just kind of calm himself down, because INER is not necessarily one of those players who plays with his heart on his sleeve. He's a very refined, like technical player who takes his time. So I really think he'll pull himself back together for this final match, and it is going to be Rogue versus Zoo, and this is a matchup that has been around for quite some time. Obviously, the rules have changed. We talked about it earlier. Blade Flurry's been altered, so it's no longer that big sweeping board clear, but Zoo also has less overall sticky presence on the board.
Like both decks got hit a little bit, I would say, in this particular matchup. Like Blade Flurry is gone. It used to be the best card in the matchup, but also, like you said, less sticky minions like those Haunted Creepers, Nerubian Eggs. Those are not there anymore, and something like Forbidden Tentacles are very easy to fan of knives.
We see both players looking extremely focused, and this is such a big moment for both of them.
It sure is.
Tournament lives on the line. We are going to hop right into the Game 7, though. As we said, Zoo versus Miracle Rogue, and for INER, got to find those backstabs. He does not have the coin, which is a big deal for Rogue.
Yeah, I mean, it would certainly be nice to have. Rogue is kind of the class that, maybe even the only class that likes having the coin. It's a big deal being able to combo the SI agent, for example, very easily. Getting to generate those extra tokens with the Violet Teacher.
Keeps the prep, though, and finds another prep in a Violet Teacher. So,
oh, wow.
Not the greatest starting hand. That said, the SI7 agent, I think, bails him out a little bit.
I actually think that's really good. Like, he just needs some spells to go with those preps. Like, if there's nothing to prep, then it can lead to trouble. But if he finds any reasonable cards to prep, the Violet Teacher is going to be making so many tokens. The prep is an easy, or it's kind of like the only way to be able to play SI agent on turn 3 with the combo, without the coin. So it really depends what INER draws next. Does he find spells? Does he find usable spells?
And Crane just immediately puts his pedal on the gas and he says, all right, we're going. I'm not saving the coin this time.
Sap, not exactly what he was looking for. Like a backstab would have been much better. Maybe Eviscerate. The Sap, it's going to take a while to be effective.
I mean, do you maybe just...
He could.
Just prep, not even prep, just sap to Flame Imp.
But it's also something that he could do next and go for the prep sap on whatever.
SI7 agent.
Yeah, just wait for... I like waiting much more.
Yep.
Sapping a one-drop, that's just... it feels horrible.
Agreed. Although, unfortunately, sometimes you in the situation as the rogue player have to do what you have to do to keep the board in tow.
I mean, we might see a prep sap on a very small minion at some point. That Flame Imp, if it's going to stick on the board for a long time, could add up to 9 or maybe even 12 damage. The SI agent likely to take care of it.
All right, well, Crane has options here. He could play down the Villager if he wants to, but he'd float a mana. Could go Dark Peddler, could go Knife Juggler. Now, if you put down the Knife Juggler, you kind of are aware that you're getting into that turn where something like Prep SI7 agent could come out and kind of punish, but you do have the follow-up with the Flame Imp, so it doesn't feel as bad.
Yep. Knife Juggler, it's so risky. Like Peddler is much safer because they could be a backstab SI.
Yeah.
We'll see how he considers what he considers to be the best play here. But I think that the Dark Peddler would be.
He's going for it, though.
But he's going to do the Juggler. If INER finds a backstab right now, it's going to be so huge.
Oh, he finds the backstab. Oh, this is so bad.
Oh my god.
Oh no, for Crane, this is.
That is a huge moment.
This is
that backstab right there might be worth a whole several $1,000s.
All right, now Saviz, I want you to say abusive Sergeant off the Dark Peddler, as apparently you are predicting the future.
Abusive Sergeant off the Dark Peddler.
No, I mean it's 3 power overwhelmings.
No, you picked the Soulfire. You picked the Soulfire and just Soulfire the SI off the board. You gotta fight for the board. I mean that SI is going to get too much done otherwise.
Completely agree.
I think it's an easy pick, but he could also. I mean, I guess he could like power overwhelm if he wants to get rid of his Voidwalker. But like the downside from the Soulfire, like those cards that he has in his hand, it doesn't matter that much to be discarding them. I think not right now.
No, I think you take the Soulfire.
Yeah.
Completely agree with you. You hope actually I think the Possessed Villager stays. Yeah. You just need to get things on the board now and start rebuilding that board. And this is...
That is going to be very good at some point, but he needs like another maybe Eviscerate to go with it.
All right, so you can play down the Violet Teacher and you can prep out that Zap.
What do you...
I mean, it doesn't feel good to sap the Dark Peddler,
oh
but...
man, it's so bad. He's just gonna do that.
Sap the Voidwalker?
Yeah, he's just gonna sap the Voidwalker here. This is not so much about returning the Voidwalker into the hand as it is about generating those 1/1s.
Yep.
But I don't know if I like this still. I mean, he has the Edwin, and just keeping those, it would have been +4/+4 effectively on the Edwin. I don't think the...
This is the all-in. This is the all-in right
It's just
here.
my personal opinion, but I don't think it's really worth the like prep sapping on a one-drop when you have the chance to make a huge Van Cleave that your opponent can't possibly answer without using multiple cards.
Right. I'm pretty sure the line of thinking is just the understanding that if you get Zoo off the board, you think you're okay. I mean, the problem is he's using so many resources to do it. And, you know, this deck isn't running Sprint back in the... He'd have to get to basically his Gadgets in, which is going to take time. And then the Power Overwhelming comes out, and...
I just have this weird feeling that INER just might be sapping himself out of the tournament for the second time in this series.
Well, on the plus side, I have learned you can't sap yourself, so it would have to be Shadow Step.
Oh, all right. Okay.
People keep telling me to sap myself, and it just doesn't work, but you can Shadow Step yourself, and Zeril of the Poison Mind.
Why would you... It's not worth anything. You even have the death rattle from that, so you don't really mind. It's not worth saving. And the Edwin, it's a spell, and like if he picks up an Auctioneer prep,
Right.
Fade Leaf on the Auctioneer like that. Never mind.
I was gonna say I think you would have preferred a different Toxin
Okay.
off of Zeril, but yeah, I agree. I'm not sure. Maybe a little bit overprotective of that Zeril.
I mean, he did just save it. There would have been a trade with the Dark Iron Dwarf, but what is it worth? And I think the Fade Leaf Toxin would have been so valuable for the Auctioneer, or maybe even the Van Cleave to like get some buffing action going. And also, like if the Xeril dies, it has a Death Rattle, which might give you more options going forward. I just think the INER might be like playing a little bit too fast, like we saw in the Leroy moment earlier. But let's see if the Xeril is worth something.
I mean, one thing to consider is that if the Possessed Villager had been able to trade up to kill the Zero, which we did see it would have been able to do, maybe he was considering that he just wanted to use them on a different minion.
Like that, I just don't see the value in the Xeril. Like, what? Yeah, he can push 3 damage to face, but all right. Well, back to Crane. Crazed Alchemist from the top. Not the best card in this particular matchup. Does have its best. Oh, Defender of Arcus. Well, that's great because he could kill off the Drake with his Dark Iron. No, but he doesn't have enough mana to flip it just yet. Because he could like flip the 5/1 into a 1/5 and for like more future use, but.
I mean, at the very least, you can still get rid of the Drake.
It's true. Like
and then you can get rid of Zeril.
Yeah, I mean he could defender the villagers and use the villagers to clear the Drake, but then kind of everything goes low. This is actually a tough turn. I'm interested to see how Crane chooses to navigate it.
I think I like this better. Assuming he's going to trade into the Azure Drake.
Oh man, if he leaves that Drake up, the Fan of Knives would be pretty devastating. I think this is good.
Yeah, and then just put it... I think putting it into the Zeril is fine.
I think the Xeril too, yeah. I mean, otherwise, it's only...
straight face. I mean, it's not going to get buffed.
Okay.
Unless it's by like a Cold Blood, and you're not necessarily afraid of that, I guess.
It's just, it's only 2 damage and like a way to remove the 5/1 instead from the board with that Xeril.
All right, there is the potential here for a very large Van Cleave.
Yes, he even gets the Toxin from the Xeril that he will be able to use.
Yeah, he can prep basically everything as well as the Toxin, so...
Yep, it's going to be a 10/10.
Yep, and we'll have to see what happens here.
Yeah, and which Toxin does he get?
That is very big.
I think the deal 2 damage would be the best one in this situation, probably, to be able to like clear off an additional minion.
So you put the Zeril... I don't know if you can afford just Dagger to take the 5 damage from the Dark Iron Dwarf.
Let's see what he gets. Oh, it's the... I believe that's the return to hand one.
Yeah, that is not going to help him.
No, not in... Oh, does it? Maybe he can play the Van Cleave and... Hold on! Can he play the Van Cleave like twice?
But does it... Aren't you already taking so much damage down? Don't you...
Because if you like... No, he can do it. He can do it. I think he could prep Eviscerate on the 5/1, play the Van Cleave, return it to hand, play it again. Oh my goodness, it's going to be so huge.
All right, now I think I'm seeing it now.
But he's not returning it to hand. Oh, that's fine too. I mean, it's going to be in a 12-12, but... I guess daggering of minion is good too.
All right, and we see the Abusive Sergeant come out. Not terrible, but it doesn't really impact the board that heavily. Yeah, and I think suddenly Crane is in a really bad situation because of this big Van Cleef.
Yeah. That Van Cleef is absolutely huge, and he already played one defender of Argus.
I mean, he still has 20 health, right? He has 20 health. He knows the card in Inner's hand is a Toxin from Zeril.
The thing is, Crane is winning the race right now. Like, he's on the play here. He already has stuff on the board, and he can add more, so I think you just ignore the Van Cleef. Like, it's gonna
you're
take
just going face.
Yeah, it's gonna take the Van Cleef 3 turns to finish this game off. Just play your entire hand, just like smork it up. But play the Abusive Sergeant maybe on the Doom Pillager, and Crazed Alchemist it into a permanent buff, or...
Right, see what you choose to do here. I do like the Abusive Sergeant Crazed Alchemist play on the Defender of Argus.
Or on that, I suppose. Okay, well now he certainly has to clear off the Blood Mage, because otherwise the Spell Power Fan would be too big of a deal.
All right. SI7 Agent is, honestly, those are two pretty high-quality draws. Just get stuff off the board.
Yeah, he can play that twice.
Yeah, that's it's actually pretty brutal.
Eviscerate, SI Agent, bounce the SI, play it again. That wouldn't leave much on the board. It's actually really good.
Oh, you see it on Crane's face. Crane
Yep.
understands bad times are ahead.
It's true.
Yeah, that's gonna pretty much here, I think, spell out the game for Inner.
I wouldn't say just yet. I mean, there's only the Van Cleef after that, because the Abusive is getting a trade with the SI. So if maybe the second defender of Argus was drawn, the Van Cleef can be stopped by very small minions.
That's true. I mean, you could get power overwhelming here. Well, no, you need two extra damage sources. All right, Soulfire helps.
So that's
So you Abusive.
I'm like seeing if it's tap Doom God lethal, but he wouldn't have enough mana, because that's 2 mana already. So if he tapped into a Doom God, it would be 1 damage and 1 mana off from lethal.
Oh my goodness.
Yep, but you can tap here. I mean, the Van Cleef is only 8 damage, and the dagger is 1 extra. So there's no real problem with the tap there, because Inner would still have to draw some kind of damage to be able to end the game. So absolutely a tap, but how do you sequence this? I guess you can Soulfire.
Yeah, you Soulfire face, and then you tap.
First, and then you tap. Yeah. What does he find? Defender would probably be the best one.
Forbidden Ritual.
It's not the worst, I guess, and it's gonna come down to this very last draw.
Say any damage from Cold Blood. That is gonna do it. Inner is gonna take the series 4-3, and gets revenge for the Europe Spring Preliminary. So I'm sorry, I'm still like, that was such an intense last game. It just heart beating out of my chest.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that there was the prep sap on the Void Walker might have been a huch misstep, potentially cost him the game, but that was not the case, and a huge congratulations to Inner for advancing.
Right, let's go ahead and take a look at the brackets after today. We will have Tice battling Loyan tomorrow in semifinal 1, and in semifinal 2, Casey versus Inner. So congratulations to all 4 players who are advancing, and sad to see some of these guys head home after losing their matches today, but what a great day of Hearthstone. We actually have Frodan standing by with Inner. Dan, take it away.
That's right. Congratulations, Inner. You're able to survive the first round. It seemed it was really close. What was going through your head? It looked like you were stressed at some points during that series.
Yeah, survive is the right word. I'm really excited right now. I didn't expect that it would be that hard. I mean, I tried my best, but I really feel like kinda less prepared that my opponent felt some outplayed moment, but I'm really excited right now.
Do you feel like the hardest part is out of the way, that you will carry this momentum to victory tomorrow?
I don't know. I just need a rest for now.
All right, well, get that rest. Indeed, you played a hell of a series. Congratulations. Inner's the last player to earn his semifinal spot for tomorrow in a series well played. Well, that's it from us. Let's head over to a break. When we come back, we're going to have more analysis here at the post-game show, so don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be back in just a second.
That was the quickest break known to mankind. That's great. The action's over for today, but I have joined by Brian Kibler and, of course, Soddle to pick some of the plays today and give a recap as to what to look forward to tomorrow. First off, let's go ahead and take a look at the full bracket from throughout the day and see exactly where these players shook up and what we're going to be seeing tomorrow for the semifinals. Kibler, any surprises after looking at this bracket now and seeing these semifinalists?
I think the biggest surprise really was just that last match. I think that Crane was a player who a lot of people, Soddle included, thought had a really good chance of making it all the way, and that was really just an incredibly dramatic, incredibly close match, down to the wire, down to the very last game.
Yeah, INER was someone that I was talking to people on social media about last night and hearing a lot of good things about him from a lot of players that I respect their opinion. So I think he's a very, very good player, but I think self-confessed in that interview there, he was nervous. He didn't quite realize, how much this experience takes out of you when you're playing in this sort of environment. So I think it's an upset in terms of, him being able to overcome those nerves and come out, but I think he's a very high-quality player generally.
Yeah, and I think from what the players expected, I know that Casey felt like he was an underdog in his matchup. He felt like his lineup did not pair well with AKA Wonder's Cthulhu decks, but he managed to navigate that and move on to the semifinals as well.
Yeah, it was a close day, ending the day on a really exciting series that could have gone either way in that last game. Really exciting stuff. But let's take a look at the schedule for tomorrow and see what we have to look forward to throughout the rest of the week. And, of course, we'll start off with semifinal 1, which is Tice versus Loyan. Then we'll head into semifinal 2, Casey versus INER. And, of course, at the end of the day tomorrow, we will crown the Spring European Champion. So we've seen champions for the winter season now, and now the trophy even has been upgraded.
The new trophy is really nice. I'm kind of jealous.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's recap in the day's matches. We'll start off with match number 1 of the day. We saw Tice versus Turna. And as we could see in the bracket, Tice actually took that one down. So I'm going to come to you first. What were your overall thoughts on the series? Anything stand out to you? Any highlights from that matchup that you enjoyed?
Yeah, it was a really interesting series. I think Tice played very well generally, as Tices want to do. He is Mr. Consistency, of course. The one game that was maybe questionable about his performance was his game that was Shaman versus Warrior, where he had the choice to play a Doomhammer. He chose not to through fear of a Harrison Jones, and then that little bit of missed damage ended up giving that one little turnover to Turner that was allowed him to find eventually the Harrison Jones, get that double Armor Smith, gain a bunch of armor. That was a very explosive game. I talked about that in great detail with quite a few people about opinions about whether or not you play the Doomhammer, but it's that fear equity, right? In the revealed deck lists, the Harrison is there, so you play around it too much. You fear it. You don't play the odds anymore. It's something that George C. elaborated on very, very eloquently in his interview during the prelim.
Yeah, and I think the general consensus was that Tice was sort of the overwhelming favorite coming into this. Kibler, after seeing his decks today and how they performed and seeing how Tice performed on this stage, how do you think he's going to do moving forward into the semifinal against Loyan and ultimately in the entire championship?
Well, I think some very intelligent people may have predicted that he'd win. Oh, hey! But no, I mean, I still have absolute faith in Tice's ability to take this tournament down. He's put excellent work into this tournament and so far has played fantastic.
And we actually have our very own Frodan standing by with Tice to get some words on his matches and some of the plays that he made throughout the day.
Very good job, Kibler, and good prediction, although I'm pretty sure a lot of people were also rooting for you, Tice, to do well. And let's take an opportunity and just break down some of the important moments. I think one of them that you mentioned specifically was the fact that you had this Rogue gameplay, and you really like bringing Rogue. Why do you like bringing Rogue? I know a lot of people are always on the fence about it.
Yeah, I think Rogue is definitely not an insta pick for best of 5. I think it's a deck that can be top 3, but to accomplish that, you have to play it really well. Making small mistakes can really hurt you in the Rogue, and for example, especially against Zoo, what is a really, really close matchup. Every card really matters. Sometimes it goes fast, but sometimes, as you saw, like the last card can really matter. And yeah, here I was really actually thinking, when do I make the Edwin? I know that Nzu has no answers for Edwin. If there would have been a target that I could backstab better last turn, I would have gone for it. But here I decided to make the dagger and yeah, go for the big Edwin the turn after.
Yeah, because I think people were expecting maybe the faster Edwin, but when you can get a huge one, it really pressures Zoo out of the game. Answer pretty much whatever threat they come out with, the Dark Jar Councilman or the Imp Gang boss. You're in a pretty good spot as well. Another thing that you brought up that you thought was interesting too was just the dynamic of bringing Temple Warrior to the tournament, and I don't think you were expecting much N'Zoth Paladin to go against either. So what's that matchup like specifically, and why do you think it's fun to play?
N'Zoth Paladin is a really hard deck to play against, especially in tournaments. They have removals, they have strong minions themselves, they have healing, so you really have to like go for your odds a lot, and sometimes just you have to overextend, but in a way that they're gonna use their removal and you have something left. And I think that's really interesting because I forced him twice to use the removal, but I also drew like 3 cards with my Battle Rage during the early turns, and yeah, Battle Rage is a really key card for you. And yeah, I think that at the end, because I don't think I'm favored in this matchup, that the way I played it out, that it really helped me getting this win in.
Yeah, forcing your way, forcing their hand, because that was the second quality used by then, and you don't really see that by turn 8, right? It's usually a much later stage of the game where it's able to force out, so a job well done, and able to win too. And now that you got this victory in the semifinals, you know, I know obviously you say you're going for the victory, but you know, now that you're faced up against Loyan, how do you feel going up against him tomorrow?
Yeah, well, I actually, after I played my match, I was already going back and preparing already again for my matchup tomorrow, and he has definitely a harder lineup for me, so it's going to be a close match. But yeah, I feel actually pretty comfortable, and I see good ways to get my victory in there.
Did you hit up Life Coach and RDU and all them right after?
Of course, yeah. That's
Awesome.
It's really amazing that I can like always fall back on so much practice partners and yeah, sharing our thoughts and making a strategy and a plan.
Absolutely, and all the Thai subs, of course.
And all the Thai subs.
All right, so that's it for us for our first interview. Let's head over back to the sidebar with TJ as we get ready to interview our next player.
Always cool to hear from players like Tice about their lines throughout the tournament, because even though we can sit here and from our comfy chairs cast and assume what's going through their heads, it's always tough. But let's move into the next match of the day. Second match was George C versus Loyan. And another 4-2. Loyan ended up coming out on top. Kibler, walk me through this one. How George C came in with a lot of confidence, but he also said that there really wasn't much pressure. What ultimately led to his downfall in the series?
Well, actually, I talked to George C the night before, and he said that this was a matchup that he did not feel very good going into. He was confident in general going into the tournament, but he built his lineup attempting to target Freeze Mage and Miracle Rogue, neither of which Loyan brought to the event. This was actually a match that Subtle and I cast together, and that really sort of, his lineup proved to be his undoing. He really was not able to find a win, in particular with his Murloc Paladin deck, which struggled time after time in that matchup.
Yeah, I think that was the big talking point. I was talking to some other players as well about the decision to bring Murloc Paladin to the tournament, and you know, you should avoid generally being results-oriented over short sample sizes in Hearthstone, but you know, obviously when you make a risky decision, put yourself out there, bring an unusual deck to a huge tournament like this, when it does fall a little bit flat on its face like we saw there, it's, you know, you have to jump on board and just say, well, you know, maybe that was the weakness of your lineup. So it didn't quite work out for George as he would have planned, but I think he's shown a lot of promise throughout this whole process, and I'm sure he'll be back in big tournaments for too long.
Yeah, even though Loyan did win the series, we actually have a clip here from George C. It was a turn where you guys were mentioned, since you guys were casting the series, about how sometimes you have to get rid of your standard win conditions in the matchup and go for something a little bit different. So let's go ahead and roll this clip in and just show exactly the situation that George C found him in. A lot of times in this matchup, you want to wait for that sort of single turn kill, that one turn kill. But Kibler, walk me through why George decides to go with this Emperor Thorsan in this situation instead.
Well, if we just take a look at George's hand and the overall state of the game, we're getting pretty late in the game where he's got to be afraid of, you know, Ragnaros is coming down and really kind of throwing off his overall plan, and just feels like he needs to do something to address the board immediately, get, you know, the discounts on his card draw. His hand's pretty expensive, pretty reactive. Playing the Emperor here forces Loyan to react to it, and he does throw off his ability to get that single turn kill later on in the game, but he's able to just operate more efficiently, and ultimately it ended up winning him that particular game.
Right, and it was a definite departure in that strategy, because on previous turns we saw him do things like not play Blood Mage Thanos when he had 2 mana available. So he obviously had those huge burst potential OTKs in mind, but then things just got to the point where he just wasn't hitting those burn cards. He was hitting all the defensive cards that weren't quite fitting the situation he was faced with. So yeah, Emperor came down 5-5 on the board, sped up the rest of his turn significantly, and that carried him to victory in that particular game, if not the series.
Yeah, but of course, Loyan did end up winning the whole series, and I think preparation was a key part of this. You know, we talked about the weaknesses of Georgia's lineup, and Loyan definitely brought a strong lineup, and it showed in his quarterfinal matchup. We do actually have Loyan standing by with Frodan, so we'll send it over to them to talk about those last matches.
Loyan, a lot of people were putting expectations on George C because they were making comparisons to Amnesiac, and you sent him home early, so I think you crushed the dreams of the double teeny bopper champions. How do you feel about that, Loyan?
Honestly, I feel pretty bad. Okay, I feel pretty bad about this.
Okay.
So, yeah.
It's all right. At least you have some remorse. But you know what? I think you can pick it up for tomorrow. Let's talk a little bit about your series overall, and on a more serious note. You wanted to talk a little bit specifically about your Ragnaros plays and like how you had some Rag Wars and some of the other stuff. It felt a little bit like throwback to 2014 back and then. If we can roll the clip and just show it. So why don't you just walk us through some of your mindset as you were going through these plays?
So here, what I think is that the only way of me winning against this deck is definitely like putting enough pressure. So because he doesn't have that many ways to answer it. Going into Ragnar's play, I'm like only afraid of his Ragnar's hitting 50-50, but then again I got Manipulator plus BGH, so I got like quick answer for that. Also having Manipulator with Lear Jiraxis in hand, I'm just trying to put enough pressure to end this as quick as possible, because if you give too much time and room for like his deck, he can like just win it pretty easily.
Yeah, I think a lot of people look at Faceless Manipulator as being one of the key cards to your win condition, right? You look at Leroy Jenkins. So it's really hard sometimes to part ways with that combination of cards because you feel like, well, this is part of the way I win, but I like the way you're identifying. It's like, I have to win here, or at least put pressure to put myself in a good position. A job well done. The second play that you wanted to point out, too, if we can roll the clip as well, is that you chose to make an interesting choice off the mulligan at the very beginning in a matchup against Warrior. Can you explain why you chose to keep the Stampeding Kodo?
Okay, so here's everything about having a 2-drop. I know he gets double Doomsayer. I know he gets Cool at turn 3. So even if he does put Doomsayer, I still got a turn 3 play. That's why I kept the bow. Because normally I would just like skip it, but I can actually just like put a weapon. So I play this matchup a lot. Okay, I play this matchup a lot, and having coin, I can just try and keep Kodo. And if I get Kodo on 2/6 down at turn 4 or 5, I just practically win this game.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, you imagine the power and swing of Black Knight. This is kind of like that.
Yeah, it just worked out.
All right, cool. So in general, you keep Kodos in those matchups, or you specifically say that, or just because you knew his deck that well?
So you definitely don't keep Kodo if you don't have good early game. Like, you definitely have to have, let's say, 2-drop and 3-drop to go with something crazy. Plus, I would not have made that without having a coin.
All right, so let's ask a little bit, one more question about your opponent, Tice, tomorrow. He is probably the giant in this bracket. People look at him to be the person that they're looking to. But yeah, you're also on this upcoming streak because you did really well in ladder, and now you're here in the semifinals. Are you going to be able to take down Tice tomorrow with ease?
I hope so. I honestly don't think he's that much favor. We got like really like 50-50 lineups, so I know, we'll see.
Yeah, it's pretty evenly matched all around. Well, good luck, Loyan. Congratulations on your win. We'll see you tomorrow. We're done over here. Let's go over back to the sidebar with TJ.
Thanks, Dan, and thank you once again, Loyan. Let's start talking about now the semifinal matchup. We've seen some clips from both players. We've talked about their earlier matches today, but let's now talk about the semifinal match that we'll see from those guys tomorrow. You can see on your screen there, we can see the deck lists. Very similar lineups from both these players. Now, Kibler, I'm going to come right to you. Are you sticking with your prediction of Tice? Are you going to change it up to Loyan now, what we've seen today?
I'm absolutely sticking with Tice. I think that Tice, his lineup, I think matches up pretty well against Loyan's. I think that Loyan has a few decks in there that I think are pretty vulnerable to the Rogue in Tice's lineup. I think that, for instance, the N'Zoth Paladin is going to struggle to beat that.
Yep.
I think that the mid-range Shaman might not be quite as good there as the more aggressive build of Shaman might be. So, I definitely think that Tice has a good shot to come out on top here.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at the lineups head-to-head, I mean, I agree with Loyan. I don't think there's a huge edge in it. I think they're quite evenly matched. But if you look at the difference, you have an aggressive Shaman against a mid-range Shaman, which generally the mid-range Shaman does okay in that matchup. If they're playing double Lightning Storm, you both have the same early game package to play out, but your cards scale better moving forward. But then the other difference is Rogue versus N'Zoth Paladin, which you'd have to say is almost universally in favor of the Rogue player in that situation.
Well, it is also Control versus mid-range Warrior.
That's true as well.
It's the N'Zoth Control Warrior in Loyan's lineup as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. See, I think they are very evenly matched. I would agree with Loyan on that one. I think the interesting part is this is kind of like Mr. Consistency versus the wild card in the tournament. I think, Tice is very, very solid, very technical. He doesn't really make mistakes. He just, plays by the book, to kind of use a poker term. Whereas Loyan is kind of capable of these wild things. We saw him in the prelim not attacking a warrior that had like 9 armor already. It wasn't just like activating Battle Rage directly. It was, I'm not going to activate Battle Rage in the next 3 turns. So he was keeping Kodo, and he just talked about there. He's capable of these slightly more wild plays. So it'd be interesting to see those two styles match up against each other.
All right. Well, now we have that semifinal. Keep in mind, that'll be the first match tomorrow. So make sure you guys tune in for that one. It's going to be a great match. Let's start going to the second half of the day now. We'll head to match number 3, which was Casey versus AK Wonder. And this was the matchup that I was most excited for today. One of the reasons being, of course, AK Wonder having a very unique lineup compared to all the other players with the Cthulhu decks. And also Casey, who just plays blazing fast Hearthstone.
Right.
I mean, in one game, he probably took 75 seconds worth of turn time in the whole game. And that's pretty crazy. But Kibble, give me some of your highlights from this match. What was the downfall of AKA Wonder? Why did Casey come out on top?
It really felt like the downfall of AKA Wonder was his Warlock deck. The Cthulhu Warlock deck really just did not serve him well in this particular match. We kept seeing really expensive cards like Doomcaller just stranded in his hand. And it felt like his lineup was really greedy and perhaps a little bit too greedy.
Yeah.
You see often the Doomcallers in maybe the Cthulhu Warrior decks because they need this more powerful late game, but there's already so many powerful late game options available to a Cthulhu Warlock, may have gone a little bit over the top.
Right, I think the series was really finely balanced and kind of was decided by almost one Tomb Pillager draw in that Rogue game, though, because I asked him the question directly afterwards, how close were you to making that Leroy Coldblood, conceal all-in play? If that had happened, there was the Lightning Storm answer that would have ended the game, but that Tomb Pillager being drawn was so important because that made the resilient body that could start pushing the damage, and if that game goes the other way to AKA Wonder, suddenly there's like so much more freedom for those Cthulhu decks to be able to operate. There's that extra buffer of the win, so very, very decisive draw of the Tomb Pillager in that series.
I want to talk about Cthulhu decks really quickly because I want to know, Kibble, I'm going to ask you, what's the place of Cthulhu decks? Because in the Americas, we're seeing Cthulhu, Druid in particular, become incredibly popular. But it didn't have a great showing here, and nobody brought it besides AK Wonder. What's the place of Cthulhu right now in the meta?
I think that Cthulhu Druid might be a deck that's more suited to ladder, perhaps, than tournaments, maybe. It's a deck that can struggle, I think, with some of the more popular decks in tournaments, like Zoo, for instance. Traditionally, the bane of the sort of mid-range Druid decks, and it can kind of not come out of the gates quite fast enough. We didn't really see it. I actually don't even think AK Wonder played it. I believe he went without ever getting to play his Cthulhu Druid deck specifically. But it was more his other Cthulhu decks that kind of proved to be his Achilles heel.
Yeah, and especially the Warlock. So we do have Casey standing by to give us some words on his matchups, and looking forward to tomorrow. So we'll send it back over to Dan with him.
All right, Casey. How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling pretty good.
Everyone talks about some of the plays and how fast you play, but I think one thing that we also are trying to highlight is just how much fun you have playing Hearthstone. So that series, even though it looked pretty stressful, you also enjoying yourself, right?
Yes, I had a lot of fun because I actually we went good together, AKM Wonder and I. Even if I lost, I would be really happy for him.
Yeah, I knew it. You're that kind of guy too.
Yes.
For people who don't know, Casey's been helping practice for a while. either hit top ladder, you help them practice, or even for tournaments as well. So it's finally your time to shine. Let's talk a little bit about some of the games. I think specifically everyone's highlighting the rogue play, and I think rogue play is definitely one of the more interesting ones. You were exactly on the money for lethal, but people look at the Tomb Pillager and they look at what's really important. But in my opinion, I think some of the more important moments are things like when you choose to attack the face here as opposed to the minion. Can you explain why?
Because I needed to get more damage, and if I redagger this turn, I probably don't have enough mana to redagger the next turn, but I get a fresh dagger, and having 2 charges is more important than taking 2 less damage, because my hand is all damage, and if I try to play defensive, I lose anyway in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think because you were exactly on the money for lethal, I think that made it extra satisfying. Let's just talk about, take a step back, and you also said you wanted to talk about the warrior versus the shaman matchup. Specifically, why did you choose to bring a control warrior to the tournament? And how do you feel like that dynamic helps your lineup, especially against the common shamans that everyone's running?
Because control warrior does really well against any kind of shaman, and since I know the deck lists, I actually know what to mulligan for, and versus this particular shaman list, warrior is really favored. It should never lose. And
never lose? 100-0?
No, like 65.
Okay.
Okay, it's really good. But
no, 35% of the time is...
and I think control warrior is overall really good in this tournament because everyone is playing control warrior overall. My list is slightly more greedy to beat other control warriors, and it just beats tempo warrior most of the time.
All right, well, we'll see if that's ended up being the case. And a job well done once again. I do think Control Warrior is very underrated. I think people are too much in love with the mid-range Tempo Warrior. I think people definitely forget that there's other really powerful versions of Warrior. You're going up against INER tomorrow, and he came off of a crazy series. Yes. How do you feel against your lineup matching up against his? Do you feel like you can take down the semifinals? Or do you feel
I'm pretty confident in winning, yes. I actually think that the AK Wonder lineup was the hardest to beat.
Is it because he's too unpredictable and wild with like the crazy stuff?
No, because his decks are more greedy than mine, and yeah.
Okay, so the person that's slower, but in this case, INER has more reasonable decks, and I guess because he has Freeze Mage and he has other words, you're going to be able to like just ban, seeing what strategy is accordingly.
Yes. Right.
All right. Well, looks like Casey's pretty confident. Doing the interview just as fast as he plays Hearthstone. Let's head over back to the sidebar with TJ, Sottle, and Gibbler and see what they have to say about the last series of the day.
Thanks so much, Dan and Casey. A good match, and that's one of the matches I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Crane versus INER. Casey versus INER.
Crane versus INER is one we're going to talk about now.
And I want to start this recap. Well, I guess we'll go later because I wanted Sottle to flip over his board, but we can't see it right now.
Yeah.
But Sottle, I'm
fine. We don't have to do that. We can move on.
Sottle, I'm going to come to you first. No, flip over your board. We're back on camera. It's a shame, really. But it was a close series, and in all seriousness, your teammate Crane.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this matchup. What eventually led INER to win, and what was the downfall of Crane ultimately?
I mean, there was a couple of breaking points. I think the last game was huge. It came all the way down to that Rogue versus Zoo, and I think that is a very even matchup these days. They both kind of lost things since the glory days of their deck. Death Rattles used to ensure your board a lot better, but Rogue had more answers to wide boards with Blade Flurry. So suddenly removing those things, the matchup has become very even. The opening hand was very promising from INER, but it was promise that needed to be fulfilled. And then, he had Violet Teacher, Edwin double prep or something, and then that needed the right spells to come out. He didn't get the perfect spells. He was kind of sapping 1 and 2 drops, but just the fact that they were spells gave him enough initiative, and that series really did go back and forth. It was a series played between 2 very accomplished players, particularly 2 great Freeze Mage players, and they came all the way down to the wire in that last game, and that last draw of the Cold Blood just crushed it out.
And Gibbler, as the resident Freeze Mage expert on this desk, did these guys live up to expectations with their Freeze Mage play? Because both these guys being 2 of the only players to bring Freeze Mage, of course, with George as well. Did it live up to expectations?
I mean, they both played extremely well. There was actually a moment where Sottle was sitting there. He's like, I would have lost this game. Yep. I think we have a clip for that. Crane was just setting up really the perfect answer to this board. I'll let Sottle go ahead and go through his wonderment over these turns.
So it was the general strategy of this game and like his understanding of his overall strategy against Zoo that was impressive here. But there's a couple of moments to pick out. Firstly, here he fills the board first before activating the Frost Nova Doomsayer. So this removes the threat of any Crazed Alchemist, of any Charger coming onto the board and just with a buff taking out the Doomsayer. And now this is later on in the game. Now that's a huge wide board, but it's very, very low power. So what Crane did for several turns is this exact thing that you're watching here. He played minions to the board and then he removed them himself. So there was no way for INER to trade minions off his board and then increase the power, because he was looking at this 1-1-1-1-2-2 board and saying, that's not a clock that beats me. You can have that board all day. I beat that clock. So he just kept cycling his deck by killing his own cycle minions and just left that kind of miserable low power board to live by itself. It was a really impressive game.
All right, well, now it's time to talk about the second semifinal match that we'll see tomorrow. It is going to be Casey versus INER. Kibble, I'm going to come to you first. Who do you think is going to come out on top of this one? These are two players that may not have been the favorites coming into their matchups, but came out on top in the long run. Who do you think is coming out on top in this matchup tomorrow?
I think it's going to be a close one, just like the other. I like Casey for this matchup, I think, though. The Control Warrior, I feel like, is very strong against INER's entire lineup. I feel like the Hunter as well has a lot of great matchups there. And I think that the lineup for Casey might be pretty strong against the Rogue from INER, as well as perhaps that Freeze Mage.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree. I'd favor Casey's lineup here as well. Again, he echoed the sentiments. He feels like his hardest job is done in terms of the lineups in the tournament. I think he feels like he's predicted the meta quite well and brought decks that he's at least confident have strong matchups against what the rest of the players have. And yeah, he's put himself in a good position now that hurdle of those greedy AKA Wonder decks are out the way.
All right, well, let's go ahead and hear from INER himself, who's standing by with Frodan.
INER, you had a crazy series, and now that you've had a moment to take a breath and relax, give some of your thoughts on the series overall. You said that you felt like Crane maybe even outplayed you. Can you specify why exactly you feel that way?
I mean, technically in games, I've been kind of played good as for me, but the heroes we were queuing, sometimes I didn't expect matchups could be better for me.
Gotcha. But now you know that you've gotten past it and you're going to be facing up against Casey. Do you feel like Casey is a better or worse opponent based off your lineup or based off your experience with him? What do you think?
Based off my lineup, I believe it's kind of better than previous match. About a player's Casey, I don't have a lot of information for now.
Gotcha. You'll have to go back. Thankfully, you're not playing today, and you have time to study up. I do want to ask. I apologize since your series ended very quickly. We don't actually have a moment to ask you on what you thought was the most important moments. But if we could just sit down here and ask you, what do you think was the most defining game of the series, like the most important game?
I mean, there were some games. Yeah, like Freeze Mage against Hunter was like a decided game. I mean, if I managed to win, it would be much easier for me, the whole series. And of course, last two games was like pretty hard to win. That Sea Giant, I don't care. Like I didn't expect to. Like, I'm going to lose, and I'm like, here we go, get this free Sea Giant. Okay.
Well, it ends up being a really key point to your victory. Congratulations, man, on your win.
Thank you.
And definitely get some rest for tomorrow. We're all done here, wrapping up talking to the viewers. So once again, let's head over back to the sidebar as they wrap up day number 1 here at the Spring Championships.
Thanks so much, Dan. That's right. We're pretty much done with the recap. We have the stage set for tomorrow. So let's take one last look at that bracket moving into the semifinal matches tomorrow. We're going to start off today, of course, with Tice versus Loyan in semifinal 1, and then we'll head to Casey versus INER in semifinal 2. And, of course, at the end of the day tomorrow, we'll be crowning that Europe Spring champion. So definitely looking forward to it. I know you guys are looking forward to it, and it should be a great day of matches coming in to tomorrow.
I've still got my horse in the race.
You do, yeah.
Yeah, speak for yourself. At least someone does, right? Rob's pick has gone down. My pick has gone down. Kibler's still hanging in there. Someone's going to BlizzCon. It might be Tice, but Rob and I are out of the running, unfortunately.
Yeah. I actually have another board backstage where I wrote Casey. I don't have it with me, but just take my word for it. Just take my word for it. But that's going to do it from all of us here at the Hearthstone Championship Tour. Thanks for watching. We will come back tomorrow, same time, same place. So for myself, everybody here at the Hearthstone Championship Tour, thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.